I'm sorry, Jesse. It's hard to see like how much of the board is present. Do we have
Yeah, we've got quorum and we're working on going live right now, and we should be live. So, Savian to you.
Yep. Are we live now?
Yep, you're all set.
All right, thank you. I would like to call to order this January 12th, 2026 operations work group. Tonight we will start the development for the budget for 2026-2027 school year, hear a referenda update and a human resources update, as well as vote on a tuition agreement. But first, we will hear from public comment. We have two written statements, two in support of addressing salary compression impacting veteran teaching staff. We do have some in-person speakers and online speakers. With that, I will hand it over to Board Chair Nichols and Jesse.
Okay, we will start with our online speakers. Our first speaker is Caroline Hess.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
The words that traumatized us all in 2020. So thank you for having me this evening. My name is Caroline Hesse, and I work at Nuestro Mundo Elementary. I'm here to highlight the issue of salary compression, which is a problem that undervalues long-serving, effective veteran staff. And on top of weakening staff morale, puts students' long-term success at risk. As a hire from 2018, when I returned to the district from out of state, I can tell you I was pleased that the district's pay scale was competitive. That was especially heartening because when I had moved to North Carolina, I had taken a very significant pay cut to continue to be a teacher there, which was pretty demoralizing. So I was glad to come back and see that all of my years were, were being compensated. But the system is also problematic for veteran staff. I mean, I'm grateful for my salary, but I also realized that I make significantly more money than colleagues with the same number of experience, but who never ended up leaving. In other words, I started in 2007. If I had not left in 2013 and then returned in 2018, I would be making less than I am now. It ends up being felt as a sign that experience and loyalty are not valued. So, I mean, and on top of that, then the people who are impacted are not only the veteran teachers, but the students that rely on veteran staff. And if we don't fix it, we'll drive some of our more dedicated and experienced educators away to other school districts. And then our students will be the ones who suffer. So I hope that we can find a way to fix the salary compression issue so that veteran teachers who have dedicated their careers to this district get the same recognition and remuneration. And please make it right for veteran teachers and fix the issue now. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Our final online speaker is Jameson Graves.
Good evening, President and members of the board and Superintendent Gothard. Thank you for my opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Jameson Graves, and I am a fourth grade student at Kennedy Elementary. I am here to speak about a critical issue affecting our district and teachers, the lack of salary equity for our experienced staff, often referred to salary compression. This is a problem that impacts staff morale, encourages turnover, and ultimately hurts myself and fellow students. While we are happy to see competitive salaries for our new teachers, but not moving veteran staff to match devalues their knowledge, skills, and installation history that the long-serving educators bring to our schools. Every day it sends a message that experience and dedication are not valued. This isn't just about data points and budgets. It's about people. I want to share my own experience with you. The issue will affect the education of future students. If we do not fix this, we will lose our most experienced and dedicated staff, and myself and other students will be the ones who suffer. Veteran teachers are your most valuable resource, and we want you to show that you value the loyalty to teachers who have dedicated their careers to this district. They shouldn't have to leave in return to get the pay we deserve, or they deserve. Example, the nurses and teachers like Miss Gerke and Miss Henner have more than 8+ years in the district, and they are paid lower than new teachers at Kennedy. For example, Miss Bratz is making more money than my homeroom teacher, Mrs. Gerke, who has 15 years under her belt. Thank you for listening. Prioritizing salary for our experienced staff is the best way to ensure long-term health of our district and continued success of me and my fellow students. I ask that you take steps to address this issue urgently and thoughtfully. Thank you. I look forward to seeing this get put into our district.
All right, Chair Castro, that concludes our online speakers. We have 7 registered in-person speakers tonight. And I'm just assisting Chair Castro tonight. So our first speaker is Jody Krola, and followed by Stacy, I think it's Wingy. Okay. And just as a reminder, we have a 3-minute portion. You have a clock up here. There's a little black box on the podium. When you see the yellow light, it means you have about 30 seconds. Red light means you're at time. Just try to finish your thoughts as succinctly as you can. And also our public comments we're here to hear concerns, of course, and not comments directed about specific individuals. So just as a way to open up public comment tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, President Nichols, members of the MMSD School Board, and Superintendent Gatto. I am Jody Retzer-Krola, librarian and reach teacher at Gompers Elementary. I would like to speak to the issue of the salary compression that is affecting the morale of the most experienced of the district's teaching staff and have you consider the consequences of the district's actions. Here's the situation at Gompers Elementary. We are a smaller school of 14 classrooms from 4K through 5th grade. Of the 14 classroom teachers in the building and the supporting teachers who work with the students, such as specials teachers, CC teachers, and teacher coaches, 12 of us are affected by the salary compression. The number of years of experience that we 12 teachers bring to the district is a total of 262 years of actual teaching experience, from between 13 total years in the profession to 32 years in the profession. 6 of these 12 teachers have dedicated their entire career to MMSD. The number of years that we 12 have worked specifically for the students of Madison is a total of 209 years. Several of these teachers are MMSD high school graduates. We are proud to work in our public educational system in our capital city of Wisconsin. Over the time period that I have been at Gompers Elementary, I have heard again and again from visitors to the school, and that may be administrators from Doyle, substitute teachers who come back to work specifically in our building, and parents when attending school events, what a positive environment they encounter at Gompers, and how great the environment is for our students. And again, I have attributed that to the continuity and experience of our teaching staff. We know our student population and bend over backwards to help them succeed as scholars, both academically and socially and emotionally. So, may I just say how dismayed I was when I became aware of how inequitable the salaries are within our district. How the teaching staff that has dedicated the most time to serving our students is the staff that is being paid according to a salary schedule that does not match more newly hired colleagues. Colleagues that we often have to mentor in order for them even to be able to do their jobs as folks new to the profession and or the district. The veteran teachers are your most valuable resource in this district. Please fix this salary compression situation. Work with MTI to get the information you need to make this right. Do not spend money unnecessarily on an RFP, delaying the opportunity to have all teachers receiving their compensation from one salary scale. Thank you for listening and taking the steps needed to make this right and ensure the long-term health of our district and the continued success of our students.
Hello, I'm Stacy Wingy. I'm also at Gompers, and I'm here to talk about salary. And I'm talking a little bit about experience. So I have taught at Gompers for almost 25 years. My daughter recently started teaching. She was afraid to tell me she was going into education, and I have tried to convince her not to. A lot of crying and tears. She eventually did. She's good at it. But one of the biggest reasons is I knew what she had ahead of her. I knew what she'd be able to do, the things she was going to be, things she wouldn't be able to do, based solely along what she was making. Now, as a veteran teacher, my expectation is that I am able to survive on my salary alone. Up until September, I've worked 3 jobs my entire career. I worked at the school. I am a driver's ed instructor, and I also bartended. That's ridiculous. I am in my 50s. I should be enjoying this time. And I'm not. This isn't fun. This isn't the expectation of what my future holds. But in September, the first day of school actually, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I had to quit my other 2 jobs, just focusing on school. And I've been lucky enough to stay working. But in my experience, because of the cost of everything, in the middle of cancer treatment, I'm having to find a new place to live that's cheaper. That shouldn't happen to veteran teachers. As a veteran teacher, I know things and experiences that I bring to the table that most others don't. In my career, I've had to deal with hospice. How many of you know how to deal with hospice with little kids? I've had a student die and a student in hospice care. I've had a student that we had to have a special room for her to go to because her biological father was released from prison and we were afraid. I know how to handle those situations. I know how to get a hold of the Dane County Jail because I know the legal rights of parents in jail of their students. I can help people get around that. I can help people maneuver through that. I'm not going to say there are a lot of people in the building who can, but I can help do those things. Salary and wages also come down to respect issue. Well, we don't feel respected. This is pretty generally known. Pay us what we deserve to be paid and treat us like regular human beings, and hopefully people won't have to work 3 jobs to afford to be a teacher. Thank you.
Next up, Andrea Miss Kelly, and then followed by Emily Clem. Sorry if I mispronounced.
All right. Good night, everyone. I'm here tonight to speak on a critical issue, staff retention. After reviewing the budget slides for this meeting and every past presentation from HR on retention and recruitment, I am deeply concerned. Once again, the conversation is dominated by recruitment. While we all want talented new people in our classrooms, recruitment is only half of the battle. The other half The half that's being ignored is keeping the talent that we already have. One of the major hurdles is the salary compression. When we ignore the compression, we send a clear message to our veteran staff. Your experience doesn't have a dollar value. We spend significant resources recruiting and training new employees, only to watch that investment walk out the door because we failed to prioritize the people who have spent their entire careers in our classrooms. It is fiscally irresponsible to operate as a revolving door district where we fund professional development of educators who eventually take those skills elsewhere. Another problem is the reality of our workday. Beyond pay, we must address the reality of what we are asking staff to spend hours outside the contract day doing with lesson planning and grading because there simply isn't enough prep time during the provided school day. The current expectations placed on MMSD educators are becoming unrealistic. Instead of protecting the precious time for our student-centered work, we are being buried under micromanagement. We are being asked to fill out exhaustive forms documenting every second of our day and writing full-out lesson plans from scratch, even when we are using the district-mandated curriculum like EL and Bridges. These programs already provide us with the lessons, the scopes, and the sequences. Requiring us to rewrite them into new forms isn't accountability. It's redundant paperwork that steals the time away from our students. It's a waste of our professional expertise. We're asking for prep time to be protected and not consumed by exhaustive documentation and other meetings. MTI has been calling for meaningful collaboration. We don't just want to be heard, we want to work with you to retain the staff and make MMSD the best district around. We want to sit down with you to do the hard work on the meaningful retention issues, like fixing the salary compression, improving the surplus process, and updating the handbook to reflect the current reality on education right now. In conclusion, MMSD deserves to keep its best teachers. We are tired of being training grounds for the surrounding districts because our own budget fails to reflect our own values. We shouldn't be the place where teachers start. We should be the places where the teachers stay. Please, let's move beyond the rhetoric of valuing staff and put the value into the budget. Let's make retention a priority before most of our best staff leave to go to other districts that will recognize their experience. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Emily Pease-Clem, and I am an instructional coach at Shake Elementary. This is my 27th year as an educator in MMSD. I am also a Madison taxpayer, a proud parent of an MMSD graduate, and a current junior at La Follette High School. I am here to also speak to you about the salary compression issue and its inequities. While we're happy to see that newer staff are also getting competitive salaries, by not moving veteran staff to match devalues our knowledge, skills, and instructional history that long-serving educators bring to our schools every day. It does not send a good message. Here's my story. After student teaching in the Madison schools back in the 90s, I was drawn to the diverse community, commitment to equity and inclusion, as well as leadership and literacy instruction in this district. I decided to invest my first few years of teaching in MMSD. I could have went anywhere. I did not. I stayed here. I invested again in this community when I bought my first house. I was adamant that I would invest my time, my resources, and my relationships within this community. I invested my time and commitment in MMSD when I continued to teach here, even though I had young children and I could have left and done something different. As a strong advocate of public education, I invested in this district when I sent my own children to Madison schools. In the past 27 years, like many others, I have invested my time and demonstrated commitment by teaching in the classroom, mentoring and coaching countless teachers, rolling out new curriculums and initiatives, setting up systems and routines to ensure my schools run effectively and efficiently, and serving on various leadership teams, just to name a few things in my journey. It has been frustrating and disheartening that MMSD's investment in me has not matched. Currently, we know that the salary compression is costing me the equivalent of about one semester's tuition from my son at UW-Madison. If this was fixed, I would take that money and again, invest in public education in this community. We know if I left MMSD and was rehired, my salary would automatically match my years of experience and service. This reality is unacceptable. And it's, again, disheartening that we are here still speaking about this. It should be fixed. I am asking that you effectively and efficiently fix the salary compression issues in the same way that you did for student services several years ago. I understand this is a larger scale of people, but it's possible and you need to figure it out. I am asking that you invest in veteran teachers like myself as we have invested ourselves in this community time and time again. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Next, we'll have Carrie Cooper, followed by Caitlin Fauché. And then our last speaker will be Sarah Thomas.
Hello, my name is Carrie Cooper, and I'm the school psychologist at Kennedy Community School. I'm here today to speak in deep respect of our veteran staff and ask for your support in addressing salary compression that is impacting their retention, morale, and sustainability. I want to begin by sharing a moment that reflects the reality our veteran teachers regularly navigate. After the birth of my second child, while I was on maternity leave, our school community was impacted by the loss of a sibling of a Kennedy student to community violence. Even while I was away, the effects of that loss was felt inside our building by students, staff, and families. On my first day back at work, we were then confronted with the death of 2 former Kennedy students. Moments like these don't come with preparation time. Students still arrive needing care, families still need support, and staff are asked to hold space for grief while continuing to teach, support, and lead. In that moment, our veteran staff stepped forward. They organized, they advocated, they identified gaps in support and pushed for increased mental health services and additional student resources, supports we urgently needed to respond to the growing complexity of our school community. This leadership did not happen because it was convenient. It happened because experienced educators understood the stakes and had the institutional knowledge to respond. Kennedy has faced years of challenges in administrative turnover, overcrowding, and systemic inequalities. Through it all, our veteran staff have remained steady. Because of their leadership, Kennedy feels like a different school than it did 2 years ago. We've expanded mental health supports, improved attendance, and received district recognition for our MTSS practices. 2 years ago, as a community school, we welcomed approximately 35 new staff, many early in their careers. Supporting new educators is essential work. It's also labor-intensive. The mentoring, modeling, and problem-solving required to grow strong educators largely falls to our veteran staff, often invisibly. And today, many of those educators are earning the same, or in some cases less, than the newly hired staff they are training. That is salary compression. Fair compensation will not solve every challenge in our schools, but correcting salary compression is a tangible way to recognize experience, leadership, and the sustained emotional labor required in schools like Kennedy. If we want stability and retention in our highest need buildings, our compensation structures must reflect the value of those who have stayed and led. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Hi. Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Gothard. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Caitlin Fauché, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher at Kennedy Elementary. I am here to speak about a critical issue affecting our district, the lack of salary equity for our experienced staff, often referred to as salary compression. This is a problem that impacts staff morale, encourages turnover, and ultimately hurts our students. We're happy to see competitive salaries for new teachers. We've gotten great ones at Kennedy, but are not moving veteran staff to match devalues our knowledge, skills, and institutional history that long-serving educators bring to our schools every day. And it sends a message that experience and dedication are not valued. Here's my story. I chose to work for MMSD because I'm a proud Lowell, O'Keefe, and East alum. I could see kids in my community that needed support to engage in their learning and help them see themselves as important, positive, contributing members of our society. I've remained committed to Kennedy Elementary Community School for 15 years. In that, I've had the opportunity to support some of our most challenging students navigating mental and physical health crises, complex disability-related needs, all while creating strong relationships and rapport. I've gotten to be part of a strong instructional team that has adapted and differentiated curriculum, which is now used as models for other schools, surviving a multitude of administrative changes, and pitched in and donated time when we were short-staffed. I've mentored many young staff, student teachers, as well as advocating for students and families of neurodivergent learners through creating an affinity group and connecting resources. After 15 years of working as a classroom teacher with a bachelor's degree in 24 credits, my salary is only a few dollars difference than my colleagues in their first few years. To be able to support my family and my children, I have additional jobs, which takes away more of my time with them. Looking at my financial future, it makes me nervous that I can't afford to be a teacher anymore. Many of our underpaid veteran teachers, including myself, are part of a sandwich generation, and now we are supporting our aging parents as well as our own children. I love my job. I know I am skilled, and I'm extremely passionate. The thought of having to walk away because I can't afford to take care of the ones I love and depend on me is sickening. If we don't fix this, we will lose our most experienced and dedicated staff, and our students will be the one that suffer. If I was hired right now by MMSD using HR policy, all of my years teaching experience would match up with my corresponding letter of my level. I am currently about 6,000 short. Veteran teachers are your most valuable resource, and we want you to know that your value, pay us like you want us to stay. Pay us like you want us to stay. Thank you for listening and prioritizing this issue.
Hello, and thank you to our dedicated members of the board, President Nichols, the Superintendent Gothard. I'm Sarah Thomas, and I work as a third grade teacher also at Nuestro Mundo. I worked up the courage to talk to you because I'm also really concerned about salary compression. Increasing teacher shortages are all over the news, as well as retention. Wisconsin is issuing more emergency licenses than ever, and as has been said, guess who keeps new teachers afloat as they learn the profession? Our veteran staff, the experienced staff, and those of us who are most affected by this unjust devaluation of our work. Not paying veteran MMSD teachers for their years of experience sends the message that our expertise is not valued. So many years ago, I came from teaching abroad and in a neighboring district to the new DLI program at Midvale. Along with other young, extremely dedicated teachers, we got the district-wide DLI program off the ground. Back then and since, I've participated in leadership teams to design and develop our MMSD dual immersion curriculum. And we have been so short on bilingual teachers that we have hired over the years many staff from abroad on temporary visas. It is a huge learning curve for teachers coming from really different educational systems. Veteran licensed teachers spend hours each week coaching and supporting their colleagues who are learning the ropes. Unfortunately, as we continue to lose and not retain newer teachers, this cycle continues to repeat itself over and over again. One colleague once told me that it seems like the better you do, the more they ask of you. And more is constantly being asked of us: paperwork, data entry, learning yet another new canned curriculum. So much so that it takes decades to fine-tune our instructional toolboxes and be our most effective. This know-how and ability to handle such dynamic working conditions is a skill and a talent that incredibly impacts our students. Doesn't research say that the #1 factor correlated to student learning is engaging teaching and the quality of the teacher? We veteran teachers are your most valuable resource. resource. The research also shows that our impact is greater than pricey new canned curriculums and rebuying them every 7 years. Please show us that you value our expertise and loyalty and how we can make a difference for our students. Honestly, I've been very close to leaving MMSD when my kids were born to continue medical interpretation or work for a neighboring district. We shouldn't have to leave in return to get the pay that we deserve. Please make fixing salary and compression a priority once and for all. Thank you for your time.
Chair Castro, that concludes all of our registered speakers.
Thank you for everyone who gave their testimony tonight. We definitely hear it and receive it. Moving on to the approval of minutes. I move to approve the minutes from the Operations Work Group meeting dated November 10th, 2025. Can I please get a second?
Second, Nikki Vandermeulen.
Board Member Lee, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I see.
Aye.
Got it. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, Jesse, that passes. All right, moving on to item 4.1, the tuition agreement. I move that the Board of Education adopt the intergovernmental cooperation agreement and respective resolution between the Madison Metropolitan School District and the Middleton Cross Plains Area School District as provided in the board materials attached for the January 12th, 2026 Operations Work Group meeting. May I please get a second?
Second, Maya.
Board Member Lee, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor? Or any questions? Okay. Sorry.
Aye.
All right, all those in favor? Okay. And that passes. All right, on to item 5.1, and to start our presentation for tonight, Dr. Gothard or Bob, Jen, if y'all want to take it away.
Thank you very much, Chair Castro, members of the board, community. Tonight, we've got 3 presentations for you conducted in teams. You see Jennifer Trendell next to me. Her and her team are going to present some updates into some of our work in human resources. So I'll turn it over to Jennifer to get her presentation started.
It's not. Is it on now? Yeah. Okay. And I can pull it closer to me so that everyone can hear me. And okay. So I'm going to start this evening by reading the MMSD vision statement and our mission statement and talk through our guiding principles. And then with me tonight, I have Jen Shepke, I have Jorge Covarrubias, and John Zulowski, who will be presenting some of this data with me. But going back to the MMSD vision statement, MMSD will be a learning community where all students are valued, challenged, supported, and inspired to reach for their dreams.
Hold on, we can't see the slides. Now we can.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, Jennifer. I just wanted to make sure I could follow along.
Sure. Thank you. The mission statement is MMSD creates safe and inclusive schools, delivers high quality instruction, strengthens positive relationships, and partners with families and the community to achieve student self-determination and educational excellence. Our guiding commitments are leading with equity, to foster belonging, deliver meaningful learning, improve with purpose, and embrace our collective impact. So tonight we do have the human resources update, we have a referenda update, and the budget kickoff for the 26-27 fiscal year. So slide 7 starts our human resources update, and we're going to discuss our vacancy rates, our subfill rates, the building-based substitute update, some employee turnover, and then recruiting and retention, specifically highlighting some work that Jen and Jorge are doing in their department. So I'm going to start with John Zulowski with the next slide.
Can you hear me? Okay, excellent. Just want to share some data regarding our current open positions at the district. On this slide, you'll see our open requisitions for our elementary schools. We can move forward here. If there's questions, please feel free to ask. Open requisitions, again, for our middle schools. I don't want these bar charts to throw you off too much. It's all obviously relative to the total number of openings that we currently have at the district. And our open requisitions at our 4 comprehensive high schools. I want to highlight our sub and teacher, or our sub SEA and teacher fill rates here as well. We are hovering around 90% for our teacher fill rates for the first quarter of the 25-26 school year, and at about 80% for the first quarter of, for the first portion of the 25-26 school year for our SEA fill rates. These numbers are up from last year. They were already relatively high. We continue to see increases in both our teacher and SEA fill rates year over year due to the work that's being done to engage our substitute teaching population and bring new subs into the district. So I'm really proud of the progress that our sub team has made in that regard. Provide an update on the number of positions we have filled at our various school levels during the 25-26 school year. So we've had a total of 737 positions that have been filled this school year. That's going back to the date we refer to as mega post back in April. A lot of good work being done by our teams to really get those positions filled within our schools. We can see the breakdown by school level on this chart. So here we have the filled rates by feeder area. Again, seeing a lot of good balance on the fill rates by our feeder area tied to each of our comprehensive high schools. And here we have the filled postings by units. You'll notice these numbers at the bottom, the totals are off a little bit. The previous slides that we looked at are just our school-based positions, whereas our filled postings by unit also includes positions that were filled that are not based at our schools. So you can see, again, the overall majority is within our teacher unit and our EA unit in support of our school-based positions. Postings by school level, elementary, high, and middle have these broken down as well. No surprise that we are filling most of those positions at the elementary school level. And again, to that 824 postings here. So my apologies. So the fill rates on the previous slides, postings by school level on these slides. So you can see that we are filling the vast majority of the positions that we have open. Postings by feeder area listed here as well. Again, a good balance that we're seeing by feeder area within the district. And this is for the full 25-26 school year hiring so far, so going back to April. And finally, posting by unit. This, again, is not just our school-based positions. It includes all of our central office positions. Our roles based at Doyle and Plum are included in this graph here. I want to provide a quick update on our building-based substitutes. This was an initiative approved by the board over the summer. As a review, these are the schools where we have building-based substitutes placed currently. These placements were made at the directive of the board based on our highest need schools. And we made those determinations by looking at sub-vacancies and fill rates from the previous year, and by looking at poverty levels as indicated by the percentage of students on free or reduced lunch. So this is a review of information that's been provided previously. We are in the process of gathering more comprehensive quantitative data related to the success of our building-based subs. Very early in the process yet, and so that information is coming. We did collect some feedback from principals where there are building-based subs placed. I have some of that feedback shared, if we can move to the next slide, shared up here on this screen. This is not all the feedback we've received. There was much more here that I didn't want to bombard everybody with. The feedback from our principals has been overwhelmingly positive. So the building-based subs are making a real difference at the schools that they are placed at, not just in filling those vacancies on a day-to-day basis, but by forming those relationships both with the staff at the schools and the students to be able to provide those needed services throughout the day. And again, happy to share more information and feedback from the principals that we've received at your request. I want to talk a little bit about the sourcing from for our staff and our applicants this year. So this first slide in this section I have, all of our applicant sources are listed. There's a lot of data here. This is all driven from applicant provided data. There's a drop-down menu we provide during the application process where they can voluntarily indicate where they where they were referred from or how they heard about positions at the district. So the overwhelming number are coming from two primary sources, and that is our MMSD website, which tells us that our applicants are proactively seeking out MMSD to look for employment opportunities, and employees that are referred by current or former employees at the district. We are, for the upcoming school year, are putting plans in place as part of our strategic recruitment and retention plan to identify in more detail where our applicant sources are coming from. And we will have additional information to share in future years and be able to really get into the nuance of where this data is coming from. You can see the sources listed up here as well. Again, there's another category here. This is all self-selected, so I don't know where those individuals are coming from when they select that, but really seeing a good mix of sources with the overall majority coming either by actively looking at the website or being referred by a current or former employee. Any questions about that data?
Chair, are we allowed to ask questions as we go, or we?
We'll ask questions after that. Save those. So the next slide then are the same data only for our, my apologies, only for our hired applicants, so individuals that have actually been hired into the district. So again, most of those hired employees coming from the website directly or being referred by current or former employees. I want to highlight some of the job fair participation that we've had since spring of 2025. We are really looking at expanding the footprint both within Wisconsin and in surrounding communities and surrounding states that we are tapping into to bring new employees into the district. We are regularly attending career fairs at all the UW system schools, the AAPI, Dane County and Latino Academy, Platteville, Oshkosh, Whitewater, Edgewood, Lawrence University, and have a number of career fairs on tap in the upcoming school year. Those are really being posted right now, so we are getting signed up and registered and making plans for those at this time. And Jennifer, I'll turn it back to you to talk a bit about our employee composition.
Thank you, John, for all of those updates.
Savia, do you want us to ask questions on each part? How do you want this done?
Can we get through this portion of the presentation, then ask questions at the end?
Thank you. Just wanted to understand the protocol.
So as we're recruiting employees, we're also looking at the retention and what the makeup, the composition of our staff is. We're able to now provide 3 years worth of data of the mix of what our staff looks like. So slide 24 provides that information broken down by race, ethnicity, and gender. And looking back over the last 3 years, the information for 25-26 is through December 31st of 2025. And on the next slide, we do look at employee turnover by employee group. This is the percentage of employees who are leaving each of these employee groups each year. And again, the 25-26 data has an asterisk by it because it is through December 31st. We'd also like to look at and spotlight our talent development with Jen Chepke and Jorge Covarrubias. We are looking at 3 areas tonight. The district provides so much more than just these 3 programs. Grow your own or grow our own to associates, particularly in special education, but we're going to highlight these 3 programs tonight.
Buenas tardes. My name is Jorge Covarrubias, and I serve in the Department of Strategy and Innovation, leading equity and talent development. This is a new role for me in MMSD, and I'm very excited that we're able to spotlight just a few of the ways we invest in our staff, which fits into our overall retention strategy. And so, as Jennifer stated, we're going to be highlighting our Grow Your Own to Associate degree program, accelerated licensure and special education program, and brand new, our dual credit certification math expansion. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Jen Shepke, and then I'll come back in to talk about that dual credit.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to come back and talk to you about some of the programs that we have in the district. The first of those being the Grow Your Own 2 Associate Degree Program, which is becoming the Grow Your Own 2 Bachelor Degree Program. We are doing this program in partnership with Madison College and UW-Madison School of Education. It's a pipeline program that helps our current staff who are in para roles, such as a special ed assistant, education assistant, village builder, food service, etc., work towards becoming a licensed K-9 teacher, classroom teacher, to meet our workforce needs and diversify our staff. So far, we have had 31 participants start in the program in cohorts 1 and 2. Cohort 3 is currently being recruited, and I'm excited to welcome hopefully 16 people into cohort 3. For cohorts 1 and 2, we have had 2 who have already completed their associate degree ahead of schedule. They are scheduled to complete their associate degree by this summer, August of 2026. 11 are on track to complete their associate degree by that August 26th date, and 11 are on track to complete their associate degree by the next August, August of 27. So as a reminder, they're at Madison College for 2 years, where they're working part-time, 20 hours a week. They are earning their salary or their hourly rate. They are earning full benefits. MMSD will pay their tuition and provides a Grow Your Own stipend to help pay for the difference between what they would have earned full-time and working 20 hours. For those 2 years at Madison College, they get an associate degree in liberal arts studies transfer, pre-education. Then they go to UW-Madison School of Education direct transfer, where it's the same thing repeated. 2 years, the same setup while they're working for their elementary education licensure or degree and K-9 licensure. So that will result in teachers who can be in our elementary and middle school classrooms. We are expecting 13 to transfer to UW-Madison next fall. I'm super excited about that. And we will be leveraging the UW-Madison Teacher Pledge at UW-Madison, which is a loan forgiveness program that the dean has privately fundraised to support tuition. Of the current cohorts, one of the things that I'm most proud of is the percent of BIPOC participants that we have in the program. Of the 31 initial participants we had in the 2 cohorts, 87% are BIPOC. 26% are men, which is also somewhat unusual in elementary roles. If we can go to the next slide. The Accelerated Licensure and Special Ed program is another wraparound support program that we have that I've spoken to you about. As a reminder, that program is a master's degree program. It is helping people who are current staff in our district who work as special ed assistants, SEAs, earn their master's degree and special ed CC licensure in 2 years, 6 semesters. That program has them in an SEA role in their first year, and they are in a special education emergency certified teacher role in their second year. And in that process, they'll earn that master's degree and K-12 licensure. With this program, it is the longer of the 2 programs I've highlighted tonight. ALSI has had 80 participants in cohorts 1 through 6. We are recruiting cohort 7 this spring. Of those 80, 90%, 72 people, have completed the program or are on track to complete the program. 53 completed it, 19 are in progress, and we've only had 8 people who haven't completed the program. So if you look at cohort 1, so every cohort that goes through, they have 3 years of service after they complete their 2 years of graduate coursework. Cohort 1 has been with us the longest, obviously. They have completed 2 years of coursework, 3 years of service, and 2 additional years post-service commitment. So we're talking about 7 years in. Of 16 people, we have retained 11 passed into that 7th year. We are on track to complete service commitments for cohort 2. So there'll be 10 who will complete their service requirement of 3 years this year. There will be 20 that complete their service commitment in 26 and 27, and there'll be 10 who complete their service of cohort 4 in 28, 29. For this program, as with the Grow Your Own to Associate degree, I am excited about the demographics. So we are diversifying the special education workforce in this district, making it reflect our student body more appropriately and aligned. We have 35% of our participants in total of those 80 are BIPOC, and 46% of our participants are men. Jorge, I'll turn back to you.
All right, thank you, Jen. Also very excited to share with you the launch of the dual credit certification math expansion. And what this means, this is a partnership with through Edgewood University, where our teachers can earn required college credentials to teach dual credit math courses. So very exciting. We will be covering tuition and required fees so that teachers are authorized to offer those college level coursework classes within our schools. And it directly aligns with our academic achievement, equity and access, and college and career readiness. And this is in collaboration with our college career and community readiness department led by Mary Jankovic. Next slide, Jesse. Thank you. And lastly, what does this mean for our students? This is the really exciting part. Students can earn college math credit at their home school by fully credentialed staff, reducing cost, transportation, scheduling barriers. Early exposure to college level rigor is building like confidence and persistence. And then the 2 additional dual credit math courses support STEM and high demand career opportunities. Embedding dual credit in the school day increases access for historical underserved students and transferable college credits earned at little to no cost. So again, it's impacting not only our overall retention strategy with our staff in supporting them in gaining this credential and certification, but it's also then in turn value added to our students in accessing college credits in their home schools. And lastly, I'd just be remiss if I didn't share that these are just a few of the ways we invest in our staff. We also have our Grow Our Own through our student services, as well as our bilingual certification through CNI and our multilingual department. And so again, as we continue to partner, as we continue to grow, we understand that the importance that there is in really investing in our staff and working towards our overall retention goal and strategy. Thank you. Pass it back to Jeff.
That concludes our presentation, and we are here for questions now.
Sounds good. Board Member Vandermeulen, I see your hand. Go ahead. And then Board Member Moser-Felton.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Chair. I saw that I'm first going to start with the building-based subs because I'm the one who proposed that, and I really think really impressed going well. But I did notice that Whitehorse has a large number of open positions, so are there going to be a lot more subs at, let's say, that particular building because of that? I wasn't quite sure. So that is correct?
So we are filling sub needs as they arise at Whitehorse as well. It's independent of the building-based subs.
Okay, because I didn't know if they were getting, if there was an and or a but.
Yeah, if I could just on a clarity point, really important to note that having a building-based subs at these schools does not preclude those schools from obtaining a sub when needs arise on a day-to-day basis.
That's what I wanted to make sure. That was my big one. Also noticed that that EAs are pulled out in all the charts, and custodial pulled out, which I'm thrilled at. But I didn't notice SEAs and CCs pulled out. Is that part of the other, or is that part of just general curriculum, or is that under EA?
So the SEAs would fall under the we had that separated by unit, so they would fall under the EA unit, and then the was a CC that you asked about as well?
Yes.
So our CC teachers would fall within our teacher unit then.
Because sometimes I know those are some of the hardest to fill positions, especially bilingual special ed and bilingual CC teachers. And especially with the current climate we're in with visas, I think that the Grow Your Own is probably even more important in regards to bilingual because we may not be able to. I don't have to agree with the vets on that, but I definitely think we can help there. Additionally, are we also recruiting? You stated we're recruiting more BIPOC, which is wonderful on SEA. I especially like special ed, more males. When I was in special ed, there were almost none. And I think that to see a male role model in special education it is excellent. Now, the question I am asked one of the most of the community is, does this accelerated licensing mean that these SEAs don't have the same amount of experience as other SEAs? I've tried explaining to people that is not the case, but it probably helps better if it comes from you than if it comes from me.
So in the ALSI program, the SEA work in their role in the full-time role that they would normally work in. So if they're in an elementary school, for example, an SEA works 32 hours a week as a full-time employee, and they do the same thing in the program. So they're taking their coursework and other things in the evening.
Great, because as I said, I hear it a lot. And on the Grow Your Own, how much do we spend per year on these 4 programs of the Grow Your Own?
Board Member Vandermeulen, we have multiple programs, more than 4. So are you speaking about the partnerships that the programs within UW-Madison, or
the program
reimbursement programs through Edgewood and
the amount that we pay as a district for our employees to have this?
I can speak to 2 of those programs. So the ALSI program, the 25-26 budget was $272,000. The Grow Your Own to Associate Degree budget for 25-26 was $1.2 million approximately.
I missed the last one.
Sorry, 1.2 million approximately.
1.2 million, and the other's 2.
I can't speak to those right now.
Okay. And I know you're getting to recruitment and retention later, so I will save that question for later. But I'm thrilled that we're providing this option for our staff. Will we consider also working in the cost of compression along with it to maybe consider creating a hybrid system where that could be corrected as a part of a hybrid system for those who participate?
I'm sorry, could you restate the question?
Yes, I wanted to know for those of our staff who are participating in these programs whose salary is compressed, is there a way that can be corrected through the program and so that we can fix the compression at the same time as a reward for going through the program?
I think as we move forward with exploring and really looking at salaries throughout the district, it's something that can certainly be looked at.
I appreciate it, and I'd really be interested in looking into that. Thank you. That's all.
If I could just add to that, so with the accelerated licensure and special ed program, so the staff make what their hourly rate is as an SEA in the program, so that doesn't change. When they move from a SEA to a special ed teacher in the second year, they're placed on the schedule as a new educator, following what HR practices for new educators happens. And with the Grow Your Own to Associate Degree program, the Grow Your Own stipend is prorated, so means it will adjust with cost of living increases as the board, if the board votes any year, that will be reflected in that, as well as the staff earns their hourly rate when they're participating in the program. And then when they transition to a teacher, they will be placed on the salary schedule based on what the district has.
Working in, I think it's on. Yeah. Working as an SEA doesn't transfer one-to-one into the teacher unit because it's a different employee group. They have their own salary schedule, and so when they move to another employee group, they get evaluated at that point in time and get a salary placement, which is generally as a first year teacher because that is where they are starting.
Okay, Board Member Mosner Feltham, then Board Member Nichols.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, team, for this presentation. I was just remembering how far we've come. So, you know, that's on the back all around. I'm also like amazed and gratified to see that so many applications come through the website and from referrals from current staff. That's just so heartening. I was surprised, but that's to me really speaks to how much people want to be here because it's a great district. I know I went right to the MMSD website when I moved to Madison and was looking for teaching work. And I'm surprised and gratified to see that that's the same. Technical question first. On slide 25, there's a year like 22, 23 or 21, 22 that says there was 100% turnover. Is that accurate? 21, 22 instructional professionals, 100%? I'm assuming it's an error because that would be like.
But it was an error.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Sure. No problem. Just making 100% sure.
Yeah, there was not 100%.
No, we would have totally remembered that.
Right.
And I mean, I do remember that year. I mean, that's actually the year that I left MMSD teaching. But it certainly wasn't all of us. Okay. So that was my technical question. Can you talk about why it's K9? Like why you chose that for your licensure?
Yeah, so K9 is, so we chose the elementary education bachelor degree because that's where we heard the need was. We know that the research shows that having particularly teachers of color in the first few years of being in elementary school dramatically impacts our young scholars and in some cases can change the trajectory of their lives. So we focused on the elementary years and DPI, their grade band is K9.
Got it.
So therefore we took it.
Thanks for that. I appreciate the extra. For the dual certification in math, is that totally opt-in? The teacher says, oh, I really want to do that. Or is this sort of like hey, we need to offer dual credit in math and it's going to be you. Can you talk a little bit like how those decisions get made?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I do have my colleague, Mary, on the call right now. Mary, are you able to jump on?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Evening, everybody. Nice to see everybody. Thank you for that question. We were very targeted in our approach because staff members that we're looking for already currently have a master's. So we reached out, we were very targeted in who we reached out to. We worked directly with HR and reached out to middle school and current high school math teachers that already were carrying a master's degree. This will be 18 credits that they will be doing, and their first cohort starts in March.
Great. Thank you for that extra info. My last question is about how conceptually, I suppose, or organizationally, we think of talent development versus the professional growth of employees already hired. I know that we've had some changes to where people work and what people are totally expected and normal. And I'm curious about on the inside, where are the places where you have collaboration? Where are the places where what you're learning and grow your own is able to influence, and my words are like not all coming, influence the work that we're doing in professional development for current employees or the other way around. I'm just kind of curious about that. And I know this is going to be one of our strategies and one of our focus areas. So Dr. Gothard, if you want to pop in, that's fine too. It's fine if you want to pop in.
Thank you, Board Member Moser-Feltham, board members. I think one area that comes to mind for me is that, let's make no mistake, schools of education are also struggling attracting students. So this can be a way that, they can bolster up their offerings too, in terms of working with districts, professionals that are already in a district. And, it's a win-win, both for the district and for the corresponding school of education or program that students are going through. Quite honestly, I met with President Byrne at Madison College just recently again, and I mean, that's their whole mission. Their whole mission is to serve the entire community and not just Madison, Dane County. So this is a far greater strategy, than just looking at our buildings. It's also looking at professionals in the community, Dane County community, that may want to either gain a credential, maybe get their feet wet in early childhood and continue on in elementary education and work for MMSD. So these are short-term gains that I'm very pleased with, but it's also a long-term strategy.
Yeah, and I might just add, if I may, this is the exciting work. This is a new department, a new role. So talent development is the new role that I sit in now. And so I'm really excited to kind of take what we've been doing with professional learning, which is where I was sitting before, professional leadership and professional learning, and really start thinking about this talent development aspect of and how we collaborate. Clearly, this is a collaboration. I'm sitting up here with our human resources. I have Mary Jankovic on the call. I've also talked with other folks, Nancy Mulfenter, Student Services, our CNI department. So it is very much so a collaborative way of working. And this is an opportunity for us to continue to learn, innovate, and really, as we think about MMSD excellence together and building for the future, this is a great opportunity for us. So I'm really excited about where we're going, and really just wanting to highlight and spotlight some of the things that we're doing right now.
I was just going to add, like, for example, we started that program as a collaboration between MMSD and UW staff and colleagues and professionals, where we had HR, we had special education, we had student services, we had members of UW Madison as well, all come together to really figure out in a design team how to make this program, and collaboratively created it. And every year we look at what's going on, we take the feedback from participants, and we make it better. And that's how I approach all of the Grow Your Own that I work on, is that it is about responding to what our participants need, what the schools need, what our partners need, and making things better and learning each time.
Very cool. I guess I'm looking forward to seeing how it continues to unfold. So nice work. And I think everybody knows I'm a big Grow Your Own fan. So always happy to hear how it's going. Thank you, Chair.
Board Member Nichols, then Board Member Saravo.
Thank you. First of all, I'm just super excited by the presentation tonight. Lots of good news in here. And I just appreciate seeing the progress that the last year or two. I do have a couple of questions. First is, when it comes to the open positions, you had like 3 slides by level. This isn't like a down to the numbers kind of question. It's more when positions are open like that and we're in January, for instance, I'm assuming you're still trying to fill those positions, but because of the timing of the year, things probably slow down pretty dramatically, I would assume, from the beginning of the year and when hiring really takes place. I'm curious, for those schools that do still have open positions, are they just kind of operating with those vacancies and then hoping, I don't know if hope is the right word, but hoping that maybe some applicants might make their way into the pool before the next kind of peak hiring cycle?
Yeah, it's something we're continuing to collect data on. I would say there's not one universal answer. It really depends on the particular opening at the particular school.
Okay.
While there are certainly fewer applicants out there this time of year, there's also fewer open positions, and so it tends to even out. We don't just leave those positions open throughout the rest of the year. So there is active recruitment going on. We are actively supporting our applicants who are interested at MMSD. We are actively working with our principals to help them source and effectively interview candidates for those positions as well. So still a very active process.
Okay.
And if I could add, John, if you could clarify to board members, open requisitions does not equal a 1.0 FTE for each of these as well. So it's an important contextual piece of this.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And as an example, right now, we do have about 80 open positions roughly throughout the district, which equates to about 64 FTE. So it's not you'll see there's slivers out there that are very small as well. So yeah, it's a very good point.
Okay.
Point of information. Could you repeat that number?
Approximately 80 open positions right now in the district.
Which is equivalent
About
to
64
FTE. Okay, thank you. And thank you for helping me understand the slides. I'm so happy that you all came back with some information on building-based subs. I know that my colleague, board member Vandermeulen, had put that amendment in. I was happy to vote for it, and it's just nice to see where you all landed. And I really appreciate you adding some of the testimonials from the buildings that actually have those building-based subs. One of the things I recall when we were getting ready to vote on that amendment was that there was some concern about like a maximum number of hours that a sub could work. Do you remember? Or it had something to do with like if you put them in a building. Yeah.
Yes, there's two things. There's
Okay.
retirees who would potentially come back and work this. They have a limited number for the Wisconsin retirement system, but DPI also has a 45-day requirement if you're not licensed in that area.
Okay, so thank you for that. Have you all been finding that has been a barrier as you've placed building-based subs, or are you finding creative ways to place different kinds of subs in these buildings?
Yeah, so it was not a barrier to the recruitment or to finding individuals who express interest in taking on those building-based sub roles. We are monitoring where those individuals are working on a regular basis. We found really that they're providing support throughout the school day, and on a day-to-day basis, that support might take different forms. And so we haven't found, and again, we're working with a very limited set of data, but haven't found situations yet where we're bouncing up against those 45-day limits. And really the concern primarily there was at the high school level as well, where we don't have building-based subs currently placed.
Got it. Okay, great. And can you clarify, are the building-based subs included in the sub fill rates?
They are not. So the sub fill rates are separate from the building base. That's independent of the existence of those subs.
Okay. Great. And my last question about the building-based subs, because I remember when we approved this, you all didn't know the schools quite at the moment. There was going to be some determination of what a high-need school was. And then you were going to work to see how it worked. And we had asked that you come back and let us know. So I appreciate again that you all are coming back with this update. Do you imagine that if building-based subs stay in place, that the schools would stay the same over time? Or do you think annually there would be some way of reassessing what high need school may need or benefit from a building-based sub? And if you don't know right now, that's fine too.
We set up some criteria that is suitable so that we can do an analysis each year. John, if you want to talk more about the data points that are included in that.
Yeah, so we also set it up so that we could do a mid-year review to ensure that the building-based subs were still being utilized effectively in those schools. And based on the feedback that we received, we feel that they are. The criteria we had in place were, again, the fill rates and vacancy rates from the previous year, as well as the percentage of students on free and reduced lunch. That was the measure of poverty. So that was to meet the board's directive to look at the schools with the greatest needs, and we feel we hit the mark for this year. And certainly, I think something at the end of the year, as we approach the end of the year, we're going to want to look at more closely too, to make sure that we, based on those criteria, had those building-based subs placed appropriately, and want to make sure that we're utilizing those resources as effectively as possible.
Wonderful. Just a couple more questions, Chair Castro, if you don't mind. So when I looked at your job, the different places where you're doing recruitment, I think those were slides. Oh, I don't remember what the slide number is, but it showed all the different,
20.
is it? 20, oh yes, it's got the pie chart. I noticed 21 and 22. So I know that so I see that you had 79 applicants from various job fairs. I just want to clarify, is that including the job fairs that MMSD has hosted, or are these external?
So it's inclusive of, but I should mention, this is data that I don't want to focus on too much because it is applicant selected and these categories are not mutually exclusive.
Yes.
And it's
I could see
balanced.
that.
So this doesn't represent the full breadth of our applicant pool. I wanted to share this data because I think it is valuable to see, and we are putting means in place to track this much more with a greater level of detail over the coming school year.
Okay, so it's applicants self-selected on the application. How did you hear about MMSD?
Correct.
Okay, but on the hired applicant, is that also what data is that coming from?
It's pulling through the data from the applications, and so it's that same question that they would have received.
Adrian said any little thing happens and one of my friends drops off a care package.
I know.
Hey, Ali.
Okay, got it. And then the last one is on also the employee turnover slide. What I see on this slide when I look at 25, 26 compared to where we were, in the 2019, 2020 school year is like, wow, we're at a place. This is like a story of growing stability because the turnover numbers are so low in this school year.
And these are mid-year. So.
These are mid-year. Okay. So so these numbers, you'll have an annual number.
I have an annual number. When I was updating 24, 25, I had the December 31st, 2024, and the numbers in 25, 26 are already trending lower than they were last year.
Okay. That's really promising. Although, what about the professional instructional? Now, I had also saw the 100%, and I know that that's probably an error, but that group is still higher. They've come down. The turnover has improved from the previous year, but they're still higher than some of the other employee groups. And so, who's in that group?
The professional instructional group was established maybe like 2009, 10, 11 for a specific licensure. And so that we aren't actively hiring into that group. And so as people retire or they get hired into another position at the district or they leave for other reasons, they're just leave. We just have a higher turnover rate because we're not hiring anybody new into that. So the N keeps getting smaller.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that.
And the DPI doesn't have the same licensing constraint. So they become teachers or they're administrators or
they might move into a different employee.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Got it. Well, that really concludes my questions. I don't have any questions about all of the kind of talent development, grow your own different initiatives, because that work is really exciting, and it's just great to see how each cohort is getting more diverse and also staying on in MMSD. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Saravo, followed by Board Member Pearson.
Okay, thank you, everybody. That was a very well-rounded presentation. And thank you, Dr. Garber, for clarifying the open requisitions, because that was going to be one of my first questions. I was wondering though, like in the first part, is there a timeline of how long the longest position's been open? Those are like current, but
We do track the average length of opening. This time of year, we tend to look at it. We don't look at it as closely. It's over the summer months when we're really trying to fill those positions in advance of the school year. We watch it very closely. I don't have that number available at the moment, but it's something I could certainly obtain for you.
I guess I just kind of wanted to see like how fast they get, but not just know what's going on right now, but how long has that number remained or been the same?
Well, one thing I should note on these positions, because the number of positions is so small, and again, we have slivers out there, sometimes 0.2 available or some such thing. It's the data, while we can pull those numbers, is not as indicative of the actual time to fill as it is when we're working with a larger base of open positions. But again, certainly something we can pull for you.
Would there be a way to maybe parse it out by the different type of job or something, like which one is taking the longest to fill?
Yes, absolutely. We have all that data available, and that's absolutely something we can break down.
Okay. I'd just be interested to see that. So that's something I was noting. I also had asked during our last group about the security positions. I didn't know if there was an opportunity to kind of get a chance to look at those fill rates or things like that here, or where does that belong?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. At the last work group, I was asking about the security positions at schools. I thought this was an opportunity to kind of look into that with all the other positions that we have out there as well. Because I saw that there were security assistants. There was a lineage including there, but I didn't see it in the other part where where you have them parsed out from each other.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, board members or board member Saravo, I think they were one of the groups that was 0% turnover.
Yeah. Is security assistants all of the security staff?
Mhm.
So that also means that there's no open positions?
None have left. So this is, you know what, I'll let John.
Okay.
I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have that broken down on those right now. It's not an area of need I'm aware of in terms of the vacancies with those roles right now. And again, happy to get you that specific breakdown.
Okay. I'd like to see that. Thank you.
And TJ's providing a real-time update and indicating that there are no open security positions at the moment.
I thought there was one in Whitehorse for some reason.
There is not at the moment. There's staffing issues arise from time to time where there might be needs at schools that arise that aren't due to open vacancies at the time. And so that's something we're addressing outside of that process.
I thought someone was on maternity leave, sorry.
And a leave is something different than a vacancy. That would be in a day-to-day, what percentage of the staff is absent on any given day. So if we had 28 FTE that are security assistants and you had 2 that were out on a day, then you would know that you had about an 8% absence. I don't think that math works out correctly, but that's how you get to that percentage. And that's something very different than filling vacancies, having those staff who are out for other reasons.
Okay. I'm going to keep working my way down. That's okay. So my next one is to do with the ALSI program. I'm not sure if it fits with one of you guys here. I'm just wondering, how long do people who go through the ALSI program, how long do they stay in special education?
So it varies by the cohort because how long the cohort's been in existence. So with cohort 1, we've had that started with 16 people, and we've had 11 that have stayed for 7 years. So in the ALSI program, their first 2 years are doing coursework, then they have 3 years of service. So we have them for 5, and that cohort has stayed 2 years past that.
In special ed or
special ed?
Are there any?
No, this is tracking them only in special ed roles, in cross-categorical teacher roles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this ever like a position where they would go through that program and then change over into a gen ed position at some point in time? Or is this specifically keeping them within a special education trajectory?
The service agreement is specifically keeping them in a special education teacher role, a CC role for those 3 years. And afterwards, they can choose to do what they want to do. And what we're seeing is they're staying in special ed.
Okay. And how long has the program been operating?
It's been around since 2019.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
And then my other question in that area is that you talk about closing opportunity gaps. Could you expand exactly what you mean by that? That was close towards the end. Gosh, it was one of the last 2 slides.
Talking about the into associate degree with the research, right?
Talking about the dual credit certification, it was like the
dual
slide.
Yeah, so in terms of closing the opportunity gaps, this opportunity to embed dual credit into the school day, increasing access for our students. So instead of them having to leave or go off-site to get credit, they can do it in the school during the school day, right? So this is something new for us that we're really working on, and so we'll find out more and we'll know more as we continue with it. But this is a great opportunity to bring it into our schools during the existing school day for our students, where they're not having to leave, travel, pay additional costs, family having to transport. So it's a great opportunity that we're seeing, and that has potential to close those gaps. And so more to come.
So are you keeping track then of the different groups of students that are getting access to that, and which
we will.
Okay. I'll be excited to see that then. Thank you. And I just want to thank you for including the feedback from the feedback from the principals from the subgroups. I would have liked to see like which principal gave each one of those. I assumed it was one from all 4, since there were 4 different statements.
Yeah, those were 4 of the selected sets of feedback that we got. There were more that came in after the deadline to get them included, but again, all overwhelmingly positive. A lot more feedback than what I smashed up there on the slides, just all kind of crunched together, but I'm happy to share that in more detail as well.
Yeah, no, I always appreciate that directness to it, so thank you. And that's it, Chair.
All right, Board Member Pearson, then Board Member Vandermeulen, then I'll add myself to the queue.
Hey, thank you. Okay, I have a few questions. I always like to hear about our Grow Your Own programs, as a previous MMSD student myself. So it's always good to see people coming back and staying here and working with us. So thank you for that update, as always. Congratulations, Lori, in your position. My questions are around, the first is just a recruitment and retention strategies. So I know I've asked this before. Are we going to get a comprehensive plan around recruitment and strategy? Recruitment and also retention?
We have a draft recruitment and retention strategy for the next 3 school years that really is a layered approach. Really first looking at the data and the existing state of our recruitment efforts, identifying what we need to do to ensure that we are allocating our limited resources bandwidth to have the highest impact on the university. And it's going to be aligned with the organization's strategic plan. So it is drafted and in existence, and something that we look forward to sharing out shortly.
Okay, do we know about when we'll have that completed?
We'll align the release of that with the strategic framework.
Okay. And the reasons why I ask is that since I've been on the board, I know HR, we have been through a lot of transitions. And if I think back of just the Wifley study that happened in, I believe, 2023, prior to Dr. Gothard's coming back to the district, I know there were recommendations from that report. And one of the main things that they mentioned was just ensuring that there were comprehensive plans around retention and also around recruitment that the district should have to be able to further our mission. And so now that's like 3 years past. And so that's why for these years I've been asking where the plan is. Still understanding that we are in places of transition. So that's good to hear that we'll get it with the strategic framework. And I look forward to seeing that. My next question has to do with the Cultural Vista program. And so when we had the update last year, we were talking about international teachers and looking for staff to be in our schools. And if we look at, our student data, we have a large population of students who have different backgrounds and coming from other places. And so I wonder what where we're at with the cultural vistas, especially given today's climate, and if we're going to be continuing with that program, and recruitment is at that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We do plan to continue with the Cultural Visas program. We currently have 35 educators working in the district through that program. We are looking to recruit a new cohort here for the next school year. This is the point in time when those recruitment efforts really start by Cultural Visas. So we are in the midst of providing them with the information they need to go out and begin those recruitment efforts. We are optimistic. We feel that MMSD really is a district of choice for our international teachers. As you mentioned, there is I think, a more challenging recruitment environment for international teachers than may have existed in previous years. And we're continuing to keep in close contact with Cultural Visas regarding that and the impact that it has.
Okay, great. That's good to hear. I know it was a slide in our last presentation last year, so I just wanted to check up on that because I didn't see it in this year's presentation. The other question I have, when we're looking at the applications sources, and maybe this question isn't relevant anymore just because we clarified what that number was, a self-selected identification. I guess I could ask this. Do we know in general, or have an analysis around folks who are coming to us about through an application source, and then that translation into actual hired staff? So for instance, if I'm referred to MMSD to apply by another teacher, are we seeing trends where those then staff or those applicants are actually turning into folks that we're hiring and that are moving forward with the application process? I'm thinking just a greater analysis around that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. As I mentioned earlier, we are really looking at getting much more detailed information about our applicant sources, and not to get too much into the tactical elements, but just making sure that when we are people clicking through from WeCan or LinkedIn, that we know that's where those applicants are coming from. We're not relying on that self-selecting data. And again, some of these are not mutually exclusive categories, and it's something we're continuing to look at as well. There's an opportunity to identify with a lot greater detail and specificity what those sources of the applicants are. And as we do that, we will certainly look more closely at where those employee referrals are coming from as well. So we know that the best source of future employees is our current employees. And the more that we retain and engage our current employees, the more attractive MMSD is going to be as an employer, and something that we really do plan to leverage as we implement our new recruitment and retention plan.
Okay, great. Thank you. One comment I would say is that I know this has showed up in the past since I've been on the board in some of our presentations, but I haven't seen, I think, in the last two presentations, and I would like to kind of see moving forward again, is that when people are leaving the district, having just information about why folks are leaving. I think that is very relevant as we are also trying to make decisions as our city is growing and as we are hopefully growing our student body and our population. I think it's important to know why people are leaving. It's the same with when I ask questions about why are students and families choosing to leave the district. I think it's all pertinent for us to know. So hopefully I can see that in the future. And I just have two more questions. One around the sub-fill rates. Are Are the sub fill rates that we have here in the presentation, are they specifically for positions that allow for subs versus positions that do not allow for sub? That makes sense.
Yeah, so what these rates represent are the daily posted vacancies by a frontline, and then how many of those that we have filled, the proportion of those that we have filled. So it's only positions that are eligible for subs that are included in these data.
Okay. Do we have the data around like positions that need subs that don't necessarily are not eligible for subs? So, well, they wouldn't be eligible for a sub, but would be necessary to have a sub if we could have a sub.
So teachers and SEAs are the only position handbook that are eligible to have subs.
Mhm.
We have, anecdotal data about how someone being absent from their job impacts their colleagues,
Mhm.
but we don't track that in any way specifically.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is like if I am a librarian and I'm not there for whatever reason, there's not necessarily a sub, even though librarians are crucial, of course, to the school community. There's not a sub that can fill in. So then the schools just find someone to then kind of fill where they need to. I'm guessing that possibly so. If I hear that correctly. Yes. Because they're not eligible for sub. Okay.
I'm not gonna. I want to say that librarians are not eligible for substitutes because I would need to look at that.
Okay.
With let's say a guidance counselor is
Okay. Guidance counselor.
for a substitute, then the work is either delayed or someone else on the team picks it up.
And is that, sorry if I'm just asking a question, that's is it just like a handbook thing then for those kind of positions, or what is the barrier for that?
A lot of times, I mean, it's not that a guidance counselor can't get a sub. It's those are the specialty subs are very difficult to hire for.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. And then the last question I have just around the subs is the numbers that we're seeing in the presentation, is it the numbers of subs that we have just in general, or is it active subs who we can place today, for instance, if we need to?
So these are only the sub fill rates that you're seeing here right now, not the number of subs that we have available. We have been going through and taking efforts to ensure that our sub pool is filled with active subs, and we have people that join our sub pool and don't ever take assignments. So it's something that we are continuing to monitor and to clean up, for lack of a better word. But we have individuals who might, for a period of time, take on a number of substitute opportunities and then not do so for a period of time afterwards. Ones who are engaged occasionally, and people who look to pick up assignments every day. So it's a real mix.
Okay. Thank you so much. And then just the last comment I would say, just thank you for having those anecdotes from about our subs that we created and that I was supporting, because I think it is important to get the feedback from how impactful those can be, especially because we don't always get the feedback directly sometimes in the presentations around how vacancies at schools can potentially, affect our students. And so if we're able to make the decisions at the board level to kind of help support schools, whether that's vacancies or through the subs, to me, that's a worthwhile thing. So thank you so much. That's all my questions, Sabian.
Thank you, Board Member Vandermeulen. Go ahead.
Yes, going on this, I want to raise the point my colleague Maya Pearson made. I do want to know how these vacancies, even security vacancies, or not just vacancies, how security leaves as well as vacancies affect our students. I understand that staff is important, and I am not discounting them in any way, but we hear that a lot. We don't always hear on how it affects the day-to-day of our students. The other question that I'd like to know on recruitment and retention and is that we put a lot of money in our staff. I'd like to know what programs we offer. I think that needs to be stated, but I also want to see what we risk losing compared from a veteran staff to a new staff in terms of experience and in terms of the amount of work production, if possible. And that may not be possible. I get that, and I understand that. And my very, very last question, I swear, Chair, I promise, is actually more of a comment, is I would like to see salary compression addressed sooner rather than later, because I think we can't do anything on recruitment and retention until that's solved. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, my question is really around our bilingual support staff. I'm wondering how we are doing in terms of our bilingual therapists and counselors in our schools, and what efforts we could do to improve our recruitment for individuals with um, bilingual certification.
Thank you for the question. On those particular roles, I don't have those data broken out here right now. Again, something I can certainly do to provide it. Bilingual roles are among our most difficult to fill. There are a lot of efforts within the district going in to fill those positions, both within HR and with our internal partners, and with a lot of the partnerships that we're focusing on. So something that we are really looking to move the needle on over the next several years, and certainly recognize as an area of high need.
Absolutely. As a board member, it's definitely something I would like to see us elevate our attention to, whether through the budget or policy, as our bilingual students are fastest growing demographic in the district. Okay, that concludes my question. Are there any further questions from board members? Seeing none, I think we can move on to our next topic tonight, which I believe is the referendum update.
Thank you very much, Jennifer and team. Chair Castro, members of the board, next we'll have Scott Chiak come up and provide an update on referendum 2024. Hard to believe we were just well, I'll let him give the exact dates, but we're very close to groundbreaking for 4 brand new facilities in MMSD.
All right. Good evening, members of the board. Thank you, Dr. Gothard. Can you hear me now? There we go. I always speak so soft in front of a microphone. It's great. I'm okay. Referendum update for this evening. Next slide, Jesse. One more, please. We're going to quickly go over the timeline process, kind of a recap, kind of where we've been and where we're going. So first, begin our big master project schedule. We are well into phase 1 of our projects. Again, we have started off phase 2. We are already engaging the principals, starting the community member sites, and you'll see that a little bit further. As we start making decisions towards phase 3, it'll come quickly. So we are actively moving. It's been over a year since the vote. So we've done a lot of work in the background, and we're starting to see some of the fruits of our labor, which we'll see a little bit here shortly. Next slide, please. A little more in depth of our timeline, phase 1. You can see we are in construction documents. We have now issued a 95% completion documents that are going through the bidding cycles. We'll be releasing bids to our trades groups across the community within the next week or 2. We have gotten some bids back for our construction packages for structural steel, some groundwork and earthwork, and casting for our concrete. So we're making some very, very heavy progress going forward. We expect in February we'll see more construction bids coming through as we see that construction process continue. So we're currently in the construction documents, and then we're starting the design phase for phase two. We'll talk a little bit more about that next month. Next slide, please. Just a quick view of our broad budget update. As we start breaking ground, we'll start to see individual projects rolling up for phase one, what school, what their budget, what percent of completion is. Right now, it's a big general category because we're working across multiple factors. We've currently spent about $6.7 million to date. Includes our architect fees, our construction management fees, and a pre-procurement of some items that are important to keep the project on schedule, including all the services and then upcoming consent you'll see for city Madison fees and architectural fees coming. So so far we are on schedule and on budget. So we are doing very well at this point. We'll find out when more bids come. We are looking good at this point, thanks to our partners in the community. Just a little bit of a work accomplished in November. We did have the first big final design reviews with our principals for our phase one schools. Really got that final touch and input from them of they've had time to digest, see the footprints, see the plans, come back with some suggestions or moving around things within their schools to make it fit and feel for them. We also issued the bid documents at the end of end of November for our structural steels, which we got awarded in December. We have gotten foundations precast done in December as well with awards happening to keep us on schedule for phase one schools. In addition to which the bidding windows and all the bid peers and everything that came through our phase one schools happened in December at the very end of December, which then gave us our awards for some of our project work to keep us on schedule. In December, we also engaged our phase two schools. So Cherokee, Orchard Ridge, Toki, and Senate all had individual meetings with our architects talking about what the buildings will look like, what's needed for them, what's the program you need, how many classrooms do you need, what do the classrooms need to do, and how's the culture of your school? What does it need? What does it feel like? And how does it work? In addition to that, we also met with the staff as well, talking about what do you need as a staff? What's the next things that you guys need to understand? And how do we need to shape your school to make you more productive to help our students learn? And then we roll that into, as we go into the next slide, Jesse, into January. So as you tell, we're deep into January work. We got the new bid packages coming out for a 95% review docs for constructions, which means we are that close to finishing up our buildings in phase one. Currently going through page turn meetings, going through every single detail of the buildings, from steel to electrical outlets, where does stuff go? That's this week. And then as we finish up this week's work, we'll take those final touches and then reissue the final packages, which won't have cost implications, just a matter of making sure they have the detailed scopes of work. And we'll be putting that on the streets here in the next 2 weeks. And then our CMs are going to do a nice job of staggering the bids. So we don't have two schools flooding the market, one school hit, then they'll have the next school that'll come. So it starts to additive where crews can work independently, meaning they can work on one school. If they choose to bid on a second school, they can remobilize to the other place versus all flux of work happening at the exact same time, right? It's very, very important when you talk about workload and balance. Too much on the market, higher price, right? So being able to balance the workload and staggering their work schedules to ensure that trades can work and play independently also helps to keep the cost levels down and construction on target, right? One thing on here is we've negotiated and worked with Darcy Well Systems to finalize the agreements for geothermal wells. We will have all geothermal in all of our buildings, all of our schools, coming with a nice warranty group to make sure that performance over lifetime and longevity of those buildings will last. Upcoming in January 15th, this Thursday, we will meet with the City Madison group at Meadowwood Library, talking about what phase two potentially may look like, working with the city groups, what have a community aspect of Tokyo Orchard Ridge looks like. Especially as the city tends to develop in that shopping area, there's a lot of changes that are happening over. How do we work with the City of Madison to potentially shape what the buildings and community space will look like with that particular school? And also at the end of the month, I will put a reminder, folks, we have 3 dates, 27th, 28th, and 29th for our public input sessions. These are our chances for our community members, local city authority, alders, everybody else who wants to join teachers to join us in an input session asking about what they need. Like, what are you looking at? How do you feel? What's in your school? There'll be a lot of hands-on demonstration, pictures, demonstrative things to, hey, what do you need? And give them ideas to spark those conversations. It worked really well in phase one. We're really want to bring this to phase two. It really gives a chance for everybody to see and hear what we're intending to do. But more importantly is, what does it need to be, right? Taking that information back and let us shape what they're telling us to make the end result as what they want as a school, not what we choose it to be. Coming also forward in February, again, the big award packages come through once we get our heavy details on pricing. And then we'll start seeing slow inputs of our phase two design start to show up, what the feel of the buildings will look like on the property. Won't be a lot of details. We work through that input session stuff, but you'll see how the building's shaping and coming into space where it comes into the landscaping, how it will sit in. Next slide, please. Here are some the images of what the buildings will look like. This will kind of spur into next month's conversation. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what these will look like. This is the entrance from the southwest, looking at the entrance to Shabazz High School. You can see it has a drive for some parking there, some ADA compliance, and also where our trades and intern staff will be. Next slide, please. Sherman Middle School entrance, opposite corner of the building, coming from the northeast. That's where the main staff parking lot will be. There'll be a lot of green open space there, and then also access to the building and across the neighborhoods from Sherman Avenue over to Ruskin. Next slide, please. Again, this is the Blackhawk Middle School entrance. This is coming from the south, looking at the hillside. Existing school would be right in front of this. Parking lot to the far left. Very colorful entrance, very open space for our community, easy access for folks that are coming in a big bus drop-off loop that will be able to control traffic and keep buses off the street here, moving through that environment, such a very tight constraint. Next slide, please, is the entrance to Gompers. As you can see, ADA compliant playgrounds, multiple areas for playing with our students. And on the opposite side of that, you just can't quite see it as a 4K playground. So there's very distinct play areas for our students of different sizes, including fencing that doesn't show some of the graphics, but we'll see. I wanted to generate these images for you to kind of lead into next month's conversation. We'll have our architects here really showing some more detail, fly through this space. Now that we're 95% complete, there's a lot more detail that's coming inside, what it may look like and the vision, how it looks, including separating space, keeping students out of certain areas, but decorative, but also brings a good continuity to the buildings to let our students really excel, and more importantly, have space for our teachers to perform that work. Next slide. Just a quick update, again, adding to phase one, here are our construction schedules. So we're finishing up the design phase right now. We're going heavily into bidding projects. We're doing that currently, and we'll be heavily more into January, early February. And then we start getting into actual construction, actually putting shovels in the ground, moving dirt, with the expected occupancy of our buildings August of 27. It gives us about a month to get the building resituated, get our staff back in the buildings, get their classrooms ready to go, and be open on time for school 27-28 school year. Next slide. And 67 days before our groundbreaking ceremony. Yeah, that's right, 67 days. For our groundbreaking ceremony on March 20th, 2026. We encourage all of you community members to join us in the next celebration that will happen at our schools. The date is set, the times are yet to be determined, likely start about 10:30 in the morning. You guys will get an invite to that coming up pretty shortly. It's the Friday before spring break. Any questions?
All right, Board Member Muldrow, then Board Member Vandermeulen, then Board Member Pearson.
Thank you so much, Chair Castro. I'm really excited to see these projects take us kind of from groundbreaking to ribbon cutting ceremonies. And I also just want to say that, you know, to start these projects in March of next year and know that they'll be done in the summer of 2027 feels like a really expedited process. It was really exciting to hear you say we are on time and on budget. Do we have a good amount of cushion in terms of either our budget or our timeline to manage any sort of delay or any sort of unanticipated expense?
Yeah, we're currently holding about $5 million per building for contingency fund for anything that comes up from tariff related, any undisturbance of soils that we may come into, or anything that comes into challenge for the political environment that we are in. All of our numbers are still holding for that contingency at this time. We also have a design contingency, which we will let go once we get through the bidding phase and actually get to breaking ground. So we'll have that money will drop to the bottom, as we call it. So we're holding about right now about 6 million, but everything's going to hold about $5 million contingency per building, to account for anything tariffs or anything that may come up that is unforeseen at this time. Currently, we are not seeing any obstacles in tariffs. We are being very conscious about if we start to see them escalate, we will move to pre-purchase quickly to secure some of the funding. We already have identified things at which we can do or may have risk for. So that's currently how we sit so far. As far as schedules, our biggest challenge of schedule is the City of Madison and the fees processing. Through some diligent effort between us and the city and the engineering team to say, we have now pushed this back to schedule as a risk. But they've been super active the last 2 weeks, really driving forward to help us get through these processes. They take time. Some of it's new stormwater. We're ahead of the city with the new stormwater. They're redoing the northeast side and north side of Madison stormwater plan. We're ahead of them. They didn't plan for this. So they're kind of working concurrently. So we've made some of the decisions as well as to upsize our piping, upsize what we need to do versus what they're telling us to give them the buffer, right? We're putting a little more into it than we have to, but it's the right thing to do. And it's also the smart thing to do to get ahead of long-term issues that may come up. In 10 years down the road, you don't know. So let's just put it in now. Let's just make it right. So we're redoing all of the utilities on the sites, as they say.
Thank you so much for that information. I think it's tremendously helpful to know kind of what the parameters are in relationship to both time and resources, and then, the external impact of kind of the market at this point. Seems like a reasonable thing for all of us to keep our eyes on. I want to thank you for emphasizing geothermal technology, and our relationships to sustainability as we build these schools. I am wondering if there is any other aspect of sustainability or universal design that you would like to highlight for us in terms of what we can expect from these buildings.
Yeah, good question. So our existing buildings have an EUI, or intensity use, energy usage intensity, of about 55. But the higher the number, the less energy efficient they are. New buildings are set to be slated at 25, which is LEED capable, right? We talk about LEED versus not LEED. Our design premise is to make them LEED capable. So if we choose to go after certifications, we choose to do the extra metering, other things that are needed, we will be LEED certified. But at this time, we're not pursuing LEED. Everything that's associated with the envelope that makes it LEED is LEED. We're choosing to put that reinvestment back into solar panels, adding more to the building and the aspects of the building versus going for a certification process, but it is ready if it needs to be. In addition to that, our schools all will have solar panels on the roofs. Blackhawk Gompers has, I think, 40 or 35% of the roof covered with solar panels. Sherman Shabazz will be in excess of 50%. So we are really invested in solar, multiple lines of solar. So we have basically feeding dual systems, not solely dependent on one system going down. So we'll have two different feeds going into the power systems. Like I said, the envelopes are there. Geothermal. We also have charging stations for our cars will be there as well. So it'll be like our high schools. There'll be charging systems going in all of our schools and the new sites, including part of our sustainability across the district. We have 10 other schools coming online for Dane County Charge Up for sustainability of electrified vehicles as well. So lots of work to make that work that way.
I think that is tremendously exciting, and I really want to celebrate that we are creating an infrastructure that is sustainable and long-lasting and mindful of the environment. Thank you so much for answering my questions this evening. I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you, Chair Castro.
Board Member Vandermeulen, then Board Member Pearson.
Yes, on accessibility are my main things. Do all buildings have at least one elevator, correct?
Yes. Sherman Shabazz 2.
Most have two?
Sherman Shabazz has 2.
Sherman and Shabazz has 2?
Yep.
The Gompers one has 1. Will that still be enough for the size of the student bus?
Yeah, it's exact centered of the building and right next to all the common spaces, upper and lower. And that's where the easy accessibility would come in as well. Gompers is a single story and Blackhawk is 2. So therefore Gompers is already kind of accessible in itself. But as you get through that and kind of the common space, it opens up to a common elevator.
Additionally, some suggestions, if I may.
Sure.
Please don't use flagstone. It chips and causes lovely divots that fit my cane perfectly.
Oh, no.
And it's a personal thing that I've found in most school buildings actually used to use a ton of it. Additionally, are we using on the handicap buttons? Do we have them on all the libraries?
These have it, yes. These are all part of the accessibility area, yes. This way they're laid out.
And to get in the gyms and to get in classrooms, do we need them in the classroom?
No, not in the classrooms.
But there's ways for individuals with disabilities to get in the class without someone having to hold the door open for it.
It's very similar to our other classrooms as they sit now across our district.
And then my last one, and bear with me, Chair, this will take 1 second. Earlier this year, Martha, I hope you don't mind me telling this story. Martha and I did a school visit, and there was only one handicap parking spot, which was taken, and the garbage truck had to come through. And we had to move because there was not enough parking. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen again. Do we have enough more than one spot? Because there's got to be more than one individual with disabilities who drives.
Yeah, I don't know rough. I can look shortly, but I know Sherman Shabazz has at least 3. And I believe Blackhawk Gompers has 4, 2 on the up, 2 on the lower, 2 different parking lots. So there's plenty of accessibility parking on the sites.
And then additionally, are we doing anything with sensory rooms at all?
Every school has a sensory room, calm and quiet spaces, OTPT, and one of the buildings has life skills as well built in.
And those doors do not lock, correct?
They are hold.
Okay.
Hold or electronic hold.
Okay. Because I worry on the exclusion restraint.
Yeah. They're a manual intervention. They have to be manually held.
Thank you. Nothing further. I appreciate your hard work and thank you for working with me on this. Additionally, now we just have to get our other schools, which are ADA compliant, to be even better than ADA compliant. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Board Member Pearson, then Board Member Mosner-Feltham.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't realize how fast we're going. So it's really exciting to see. We will have that groundbreaking in March. I did have a question just about the tariffs, but it seems that it has been answered. It's just I know it posed a unforeseen issue for us in the last referendum. So I just wanted to check in on that. So thank you for expounding on that. My question around just conversations that we've had, if I think about the conversations that we've had or community members or elders coming forth to us asking about certain, things around our schools like fencing or, not transportation in the sense of busing, but children walking to schools. And I know we've gotten some updates over the time. How are those conversations kind of being included into how we're designing and having conversations with the city right now?
Yeah, good question. I'll give a couple examples. So especially in phase 1, right? We heard kind of what the alders were talking about, traffic patterns and from UDC and the Common Council and Plan Commission. So we've actively reached out and we've had several conversations with the city groups, especially traffic engineering, with Blackhawk Gompers and Sherman Shabazz. With Blackhawk Gompers, it is a complete change of traffic pattern. It's going from, the south to the north on the elementary side. So Wyoming Way and Wheeler Road are going to change dramatically. Wheeler Road becomes a more active site for students. Right now, it's not. So we've worked with the city traffic engineering to talk about what do we need to put in for either center traffic or center islands, help control traffic. Do we need RRFBs? There are some blind corners. So again, we're talking about how do we slow traffic patterns, and we're asking them to be proactive and put them in this fall to give a year of changing behavior, right? And start enforcing that behavior long before our students get there. So we're asking kind of proactively. And on the bus side, we've had some very detailed conversation whether we have to help chip in and pay for extra signage, whether it be a three-way stop and allow our buses to move more, I would say, controlled, and having a break in traffic patterns where our buses can move. And when do that, our students can walk safely because traffic is stopped. So we have actively worked around Blackhawk Gompers all about those significant ways, and even the signage within our own lots. And then Shabazz and Sherman, the same thing. How do we slow the traffic down at Sherman because there's a slightly different entrance? We'll have a Shabazz students going there. We are changing the bus stop to be more closer to the entrance of Shabazz because it is moving more towards the south. And then on the same side of it, how do we keep or add another RRFB on Sherman Avenue, Ruskin Avenue? We're talking about signage and putting different stop signs up on the side of Sherman because it's changing, and where we're staging our buses on Ruskin. And we already set kind of a concrete pattern where it's not, students aren't walking across mud to get on the bus. It's going to be concrete all the way across and working through that. And we can keep it clean, salted, so there's no risk there. And also having enough gap between our buses when they stage and work in the city to mark lines. So like, here's where a bus pulls and the other one's going to be over here to allow free flowing traffic. So we don't have risk of, impediments where students walking blindly across the corner. It's something we don't want to be in the news or have our students have to deal with. Is there was a risk, right? So opening those avenues of sightlines, and we're working extensively with the city of Madison to do that. Great conversations the last month or so. We've incorporated into the design, and they've also approved that. So we'll continue to keep working through those processes to make sure they come to fruition. We'll be very active on our point, lobbying and advocating. As we work into phase 2, they already asking, when do we start to see phase 2 so we can start talking about what Whitney Way looks like, around a new school. And, Flom Road, we're heavily engaged with them because we're rebuilding Flom Road. So we're already ahead of that process of where the school's going to be, how it's going to move, how the traffic patterns are going to change, where the sewer lines are going to be. We're already engaged in those processes ahead of, we're over a year out. So we're actively working on that because it's a big part of our school.
Yeah, thank you really for saying that, because I think we talk about this a lot, or I talk about this a lot, just about development in general. And this is the first time in a very long time that we are seeing this number of brand new buildings, like school buildings in this community. So it definitely is a shift. And so with that, are there any, I guess, challenges that we may foresee maybe as we are kind of moving forward, or things that we may not have thought about? I'm just interested to know if there are things like that. And then how the greater Madison community, outside of our efforts of informing folks, are also learning more about some of the things that are happening on the city's front and the school's front, so that everyone feels confident and feels that they are informed. So for instance, if there are changing of like traffic patterns, I don't want to pull out of my house one day and it's like the traffic patterns are different, and now I'm contacting the alders and like, what the heck is happening? So that there is some kind of communication. So just wondering if there is that, but then also if there's any challenges that we should be made aware of.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. Like, changing behaviors is going to be our hardest part, right? People are accustomed to following patterns. So kind of breaking patterns, that's why we've kind of been advocates of getting ahead of it. Give it a year to kind of make those changes, and we see them advocate quickly, and then start to advertise and work with the city alders and the mayors and the groups and the community members. Like, this is changing and why. Like, really getting that input. And it sounds cliche when you talk about challenges, we don't know what we don't know. Like, so as we kind of see things arise, if there's what I call a grumbling or an underlying sound that we hear, we go quickly and investigate. Like, we stop, let's go ask those questions. It's not like ignore to push on. Hold on, let's just hear it out, because there may be something, maybe it's not that issue, but it may lead to something else. So we kind of, we dive both ways. We go back to what a root is or where it may go, even if that's not the particular issue. It's just a surrounding symptom of something. So we've been very active in doing it, working with the alders, or especially Alder Cole. She's been very active on the phase 2 side of it. Phase 1 was kind of, we moved quicker than some of the alders had engagement to, but we kind of learned that very quickly, and pulling that, bringing that next set forward. As we continue to learn from our public input sessions, we learned a lot from local, as they learned to be comfortable with us. That's when we got the most information, right? So we're trying to really listen and actively listen to it, and draw information out, because we just don't file it, right? Everything goes through understanding what it is, how it is, and where it may go. Although it may not be, circumstantial, but it may lead to something, right? So we investigate it further than what it could be. Or, hey, that's a great idea. How do we do that? And what does it take to do it? Some things don't take money. It just takes time and effort to investigate.
Yeah, thank you. And the last question I have is just around federal rollbacks around sustainability. And so I am grateful that we live in a community that prioritizes this. And I'm grateful that we are still moving forward with our commitment to sustainability. But with the federal rollbacks of sustainability, are there things that we should be aware of, or concerns that we should have around possible credits that we may have previously been available for, or grants that we may have accessed previously, for those to, be null and void, as our federal government is stepping away from this need that we so greatly need around sustainability and climate change.
Yeah, a big aspect of our referendum is sustainability, right? So Brianna's doing a great job really staying on top. We've got energy tax savers, we've got McKinstry, and our team's already kind of foreshadowing what may happen. Now we know solar is going away. Hence, in our first phase, we overloaded solar. Let's go heavy on it in the very beginning, because that money that gets returned on the IRA comes back to fund phase 3. So versus kind of staggering that budget, we heavily loaded the front end just because those credits are there to help keep that sustainability. We did increase the budget from 2.5 to almost $3 million, because we knew that kind of is going away, but we knew that was kind of a potential risk. And we already know our geothermal systems are not at this point going away. So it's kind of an ongoing thing that we don't foresee happening. Solar definitely is going away. We know that. Focus on energy from our local suppliers is coming back alive. They're not as heavily, but we will start to see some of them come back in 27, 28, 29 as well.
Thank you so much for stating that. That's it for me, Sabian.
All right, Board Member Mosner-Feltham, then Board Chair Nichols, then Board Member Saravo.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the update. I'm sure you know my first question is going to be, please reassure me that people who have long-term, like I went to this school 50 years ago, that they are going to be included in the groundbreaking and included in the sort of like needed ceremonial aspect of saying goodbye to something that's been a part of so many Madisonians' lives.
Yeah, so there is the groundbreaking side of it. We will be very cautious on how we do our groundbreaking. We'll have students there. I mean, there'll be a lot of student activities going on. Prior to a building kind of putting to rest or being raised, there will be a ceremony kind of closing out the history of those buildings. All of our CMs and our partners will be part of that, whether it's donating bricks or adding those things that we may donate certain things to try to raise funds to put towards the new school food pantry. So we are talking about those aspects already, and we're 2 years out, right? So we're really trying to understand, or a year and a half out, try to understand like what can we do to help raise that awareness, and videos kind of closing out the school. We're looking for testimonials. We'll be engaging the Madison Public Schools Foundation to bring back some alumni who've been there maybe 50, 60 years ago, right? How do we bring back their story, transfer capsules that are there, and also taking some of those long-term things and putting into the new time capsule to bring a part of history back.
Beautiful. I love that. I've been thinking a lot about why it matters how you say goodbye to something that has served so many people, but it's time to let go of it. I've been thinking about it in the context of MMSD Excellence Together, and how we're going to be looking forward to what are our schools going to be like in the next 50 years, which will include saying goodbye to things that have served and are no longer going to be served. So I've been thinking about it a lot. I've been glad to hear that. I'm also obviously, at this point, thinking about the curricular connections. You mentioned the sustainability dashboard and all of those exciting things, and like this is going to sustain really place-based of the moment learning for students, right? How much more energy is Gompers creating than we are, or whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? It's just being connected to that learning. I was really excited to hear you talking about the way that you've staggered the ability for construction companies to work, because I think one thing we need to keep in mind is that people are going to be working, Madisonians are going to be working and being paid to work on these schools for many years to come. And I bring that up because people are, you know, naturally coming to terms with what it means to live and pay taxes in a city that really cares about our schools and is committed to supporting them. And so I wanted to tell a story about how I turned from someone who was like, who needs new buildings? This isn't important. You can teach anywhere, to someone who's like, no, this is super important. And yeah, we should spend $507 million on this. And the thing that really changed my mind beyond working in a district now that has really, really high quality newer facilities, and just knowing how that changes my day-to-day experience as a teacher, was in a school. There had been a panel cut out of the wall behind the teacher's desk. It was a music class, so that on rainy days, the custodial staff could get in there to wet vac the leaks. And that was the thing that really changed my mind completely. Thinking about that music teacher on their way to school, 7 o'clock in the morning, have their lesson plan, right, in line with their curricular scope, have that planned, and having to be like, okay, but if there's a huge flood, I'm going to do this other thing. And just knowing how that feels to have to make 2 lesson plans at the same time, that like you don't know which one's going to happen, and all of that stuff, and how that this thing that maybe feels like it's not connected to student learning actually really, really makes a difference. So I just wanted to reshare that story as people are opening their tax bills and understanding what it means to the community, what it means to students. So that is my story, not a question. Thank you for indulging me, Chair. That's all.
Thank you. Board Chair Nichols, then Board Member Saravo.
Thank you, Chair Castro. Super excited with the progress. I'm actually in a little bit of awe. But I mean, I know you're not doing it by yourself. I know you're the one here giving the update, but holy moly, this is a lot of work. The one thing I guess I have a question about is as you have done these input sessions out at schools, how have you all worked to continue the communication, and how do we continue to tell the story about the development of these new schools? I go back to when we were back on the road show, so to speak, around the referendum input sessions, right? And going out to schools that would be some of the future schools that might be changed, inviting parents and community members in, talking about what the district is doing well with students, taking questions in live time, getting people's dreams and aspirations, and even doing a bus tour with our media partners. And I feel like we put a lot of effort in to help educate and engage our community to get to the referendum vote. And I'm just curious, how are we doing as we're helping people understand the phases of the work, and that we're on budget, on time, we're navigating things like tariffs and solar going away and being committed to geothermal, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that's all on you, but I'm struck by the power of people understanding what they've invested in, right? Like what their vote meant. And sometimes we grow impatient waiting for the big thing to be done. But if you can keep us hooked in along the way, we can be excited about that. So I'm just curious, and that may not be for you to answer, maybe, you know, Dr. Gothard as well, but just kind of struck by that.
I think a few things come up for me, President Nichols, members of the board. First, we've got a great website that we're going to continue to update. That will be the landing page for the development of these projects, and already is. I'm looking at it right now. We have a Sherman and Shabazz sustainability plan that's online that really shows my gosh, 20, a dozen points, that is going to make that building sustainable and kind of speak to our district overall commitment to that. The other thing I should let everybody know is we hired a recent person in our comms department that's a licensed drone pilot. So we've got now on our staff someone who can, once the weather permits, get out and show a perspective that we never would have had before. So that we can give updates and even possibly, and I don't know, I'm not a drone pilot, but maybe even do some fly-throughs as the building's being constructed, not just outside, but even the inside parts of it. So I think we'll get as creative as possible. Certainly be interested in Claire and some of our fellow students to, talk to us about what's important to them so that they can see their future learning spaces as well. But the bottom line is we just want to make sure the questions that the community has, we have answers for them. So it's important that if you're hearing things, get them to the right people so that we can respond in a way that that shows that commitment and earns that trust.
Thank you for that. Are schools currently, like the respective schools that are kind of in each phase one schools in particular, are they sharing things out like through a school newsletter, or because there could be lots of good communication happening, but it could be more school based? Yeah, just wondering how we're making sure there's a good feedback loop.
Yeah, so in the beginning, we set a pretty regimented schedule, right? We want to hear your input, we want to get the input. We do a lot of what the liaison, so the principals or the teaching staff. So we're really kind of engaged in pulling out what we can get from them. Sometimes they don't know until they kind of see it multiple times. So then we also give them that kind of the feedback session, right? So we're coming back and, we heard you and here's the feedback that we got. Here's how we're incorporating it, and really getting a chance saying, I didn't say that. Or, okay, now we understand what you mean, right? We've changed a lot, and we still kind of continue to refine every single week. And I would say the things have gone from hundreds to singles, right? I have 100 issues and now I have a single here and there, and those things are easily addressed, or they're bigger, broader picture. Like as a direction, we didn't go that way. Here's why. So we're trying to really incorporate the why behind the decisions we make and why they're being made for the greater of the many, right? There are small intricacies each school has that we try to accommodate that, but it's being very rigid when we talk to people. Here's how we're going to structure this, and anything let's talk, email, catch us on the side, ask for an individual meeting. We've had several community groups come out for example, Cherokee's Chimney, for migrating birds. Like we're engaged, right? Give me the information. We'll put people in front of it, including myself, and we'll start talking about what those challenges are to make sure that we don't miss anything. And if we do, that's not us, or we didn't get it communicated correctly. But we're being very proactive and trying to be as much better listeners as we can, because it's their place. They voted for it. It's the students that are attending it. And I will add, we have a great team that's super engaged in our community, right? They are from here. The CMs are living and breathing this community. We have architects that are in this community that are seeing it, breathing it, feeling it, being proactive in how they approach it. And that's settling. We can do that extra mile. We'll go to the extra mile. Like that's kind of the feel how we're going at it. And it doesn't take a lot of poking to keep it going. It's fun to watch that momentum keep to build. And we're just getting started.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Saravo.
Hey, thank you for the update. I appreciate seeing all this. And there's been a lot of area covered by my fellow board members. So this has been a lot to take in, and I'm glad that everybody has a lot of questions that are in a lot of different spaces. I'm kind of going to work my way down how the slides were too. I was wondering, are the input sessions, are they all in person? Is there a hybrid nature to them at all? Or what's alternative if you cannot make it in person?
What we say, if you have an alternative, for example, we had a lady reach out today who's an architect who has a child that goes Orchard Ridge. Like let's talk to me. I say, hey, I can't be there. How can I contribute, or where can I see the information? So she's going to watch the recording and I'll come afterwards and then reach out. Like any questions you have, get engaged, get involved. It's one-on-one. It's me answering her questions and kind of working with her, and then sending it along to our architect and then making sure that's being portrayed of like, hey, there's some good examples here. Let's look at this. And there is the recording of it. So I was doing that, but the ones for the end of January are in person at the school. So we can talk about and get the feel of the existing school, right? This is going to change. This is why it's going to change. and really get the local people that are within walking distance to and affect them, right? Let's really talk about what it looks like. It's going to be loud. It's going to be obtrusive for about 18 months, but how do we start proactively thinking about that in addition to what the school is going to look like? It's going to be different. We've seen it for 60 years on this site. It's going to be different. Here's how it will happen, and how do we start working together to dream how it affects them and what the neighborhood can be.
That's great. I'm always wondering, like, how do we get the people that don't have the same timelines as the ones that we do for those? So I like hearing there's kind of an open concept, and it should be able to get itself to you if someone puts a question into the Let's Talk. To go off of what Board Member Van Meulen was asking earlier about the elevators, I'm wondering with the ones that have a single one, if there's a time where it's not working, do you feel that people, like right now in those buildings, do you feel that they feel that there's good backup on those days where that happens? Like if they have to pivot, if someone really needs to use it. That's why I like the concept of having 2 elevators in the building in case one goes down or needs to be repaired somehow. So can you just tell us what happens now in a building that doesn't have one, where if someone would need to use it, what do they do?
Typically, we're responding in less than an hour. We have folks on call and can troubleshoot. Most stuff we can troubleshoot ourselves unless it's internal works, and we're usually about an hour response time and up and within a couple hours. Or that's on our existing schools. It's kind of the process that we do. And if we have to move people around, there's also access to go around the buildings, and we also keep those paths clear to help folks do that. In our new buildings, for example, Sherman Shabazz has 2 because they're 2 very distinct, far separated schools. And they kind of have their own space. There's high schoolers and there's middle schoolers. We're going to keep them kind of separated, and they kind of work independently. And the common schools, like I mentioned, Black Hawk Gompers is all one level on the flat entry level on the north side. So there's no real need to go down a lot. If you do, it's kind of going into the middle school, but also want to flex into that, and very open, clear paths. You're not obstructed by, I have to go down 9 hallways and take a left and then take 4 rights. The main corridors leads you to it. And then there's that accessibility that goes through that. Gompers also has a path that'll be able to go around. So if it does happen to go down, we can quickly get folks down around the building and into the lower side. So we make sure it's accessible getting around the building.
So in the one that you said there's 2 on Shabazz and Sherman, right?
Sherman, yeah.
If one's not working, you could go to the other one.
You can still get to it.
Internally, you wouldn't have to go outside the building?
Internally.
Okay.
Yep.
I always
just separate doors, kind of like this is Shabaz's doors, and this is you can get through the doors and use the elevators.
Okay. I've had to deal with that person like before, or I've seen apartment buildings that only had one, and people are just stuck where they are for a while. So I know I've asked you this before, so I appreciate that we have like a quick response time on those, because that can just really impact a day for a student if they really needed to use it at some point in time. And just kind of knowing that there's backups readily available if and when that would happen. I'm also gonna just dive into what Board Member Van Meulen was talking about, the parking. The main issue behind that is that it's there's so many times where the accessible parking is right next to where the garbage stuff is, because there's a lot of room there. It happens a lot. So that was a very stressful visit. But it was also because they have a very small parking lot. So I think that's the thing. I'm just going to be just an active share of like, this is something I run into all the time. It gets very frustrating, but I also understand that placement of other things sometimes also looks like, because you have extra space, makes it like it's going to work, and like the loading zone doesn't get the space that it's meant to be there for. So that was kind of more of where that was. I mean, luckily I actually didn't have to move my car, but man, he was like a couple inches from it, and it ended up working. And the people that were at the building were being great on addressing the issue there, and he was on top of it and trying to figure out how to make that better. But the issue more was like the space and the placement of everything. So I'm hoping to see that maybe has a little bit more thought put into it when we're doing new buildings and where those things are located, which I haven't looked at directly about where that is. I don't even know if we're that far yet. But when we get that far, I'll try just kind of ask about what that looks like and where the placement is. I was kind of thinking about the outside part of all this on playgrounds, because that's the community space as well that can get utilized by members of the community, people who have grandkids that come over and they can spend time there. Are the playgrounds also part of the input sessions that you're having? And what kind of feedback are you getting from those? Or are you still actively collecting from there?
Phase one schools, they are already designed.
Okay.
It's coming back from what the community uses. So the Gaga ball, basketball, accessible playgrounds, climbing gyms, climbing areas, shade areas for our students that are just standing in the sun, right? And also separating. That's why we, at our schools, especially at Gompers and Blackhawk, there are 3 playground types. There's a middle school, there's a regular elementary, and then there's the 4K playground, all of which separate, because younger students, 4K and kindergartens kind of get run over by some of the larger 4th and 5th graders. So we've kind of given them their own space, and allows them to kind of do different teaching and outdoor learning as well. So that's all part of that process, is really understanding what is around the building. Kind of back to your comment about the trash and the movement of services. It's not about curriculum at times. It's about traffic and logistics of a building, right? So we've really been a conscious effort saying trash is going to be on this side of the building, with the big garbage trucks go on this side of the building. Parking is on this side of the building. Students are on this side of the building, and thou shalt try not to cross. Right? Big trucks, little kids don't mix. Right? So we're trying to make sure, as we're moving things around our services and our sites, even our trades guys can have a space that goes towards the garbage areas, so they're not interacting directly with some of this other parking areas, because they're moving in and out, right? And they have big vans and big things that have to move around. So we're being very conscious about where things are going logistically, to ensure that we don't cross little children, or even sometimes big children, with vehicles that may not be painted, that are not our own, right? So it's the new environment, so let's not risk.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. In consideration to the outside and the reflection on the community too, a lot of them have large art pieces or murals that have been constructed over time. Is that something that's, like Shabazz has a very large mural on one of their walls?
Yeah, we are planning to save a lot of the internal artwork that can be saved. Some of it's already on kind of boards that can move, and we're already starting to work with Nathan and his teams, talking about what needs to move. We had some ideas where we had conversations with them, and we've also designated spots in the new hallways, like this is a perfect spot for a mural, and this is a perfect spot, and building that into the architecture to make sure that this can come to life. Talk about in the outside of the building. One of the meetings we had today was like, hey, this is the spot for a future mural. Let's make sure that we can put a light here, or there's things that we can attach to it. We've already had some of those conversations already in the public input sessions and the staff input sessions, because they know, hey, we like to keep this. Great, let's note what needs to move or what can't move.
I think I only have 2 really quick questions. One more about the playground one. Are any of them getting a playground like the one at LVM, where it's fully, like, a fully accessible one, or is everything
They're all accessible, yeah.
Okay. I was part of the ones with the city of Madison, so it's nice to see where all the kids can come together in those particular spaces.
Yeah.
And I was more focused on just the outside thing of reflection of the community. And across Madison, we see a lot of artwork on many pieces to try to just blend it in with the somehow reflect the surrounding area, and know that the community feels that connection to the new schools that are going up to. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Board Member Lee, you are up.
Okay. Thank you, Board Member Castro. Oh, I wanted to thank you guys for all this exciting work. I go to West High School, so I think I can speak for most students when I say that a lot of the facilities have helped us with our learning. So I was curious if there are any preservations of the original school that you're going to bring into the new schools, since I know at West there's a lot of like bricks that were preserved and put down into the hallways, and I think that brings like a big sense of community and connection to the school. So I was just curious if there's any projects like that.
Yeah, all of our schools have a tie to nature, kind of its surrounding area, and especially with its colors. And especially Black Hawk Opera has the Cherokee Marsh. That's a very open, urban kind of feel of oaks and the long-standing history of the old preserve. In addition to, we are going to take parts of the old schools and kind of, we haven't yet to disclose what it will be, but the architects are already kind of working about, hey, I think if we take this, this, and this, and we kind of bring that old into the new, that will happen in our buildings. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, I think we can move on to the final item of the night, the 26-27 budget development.
Thank you, Chair Castro, members of the board. We've certainly saved the best for last. Bob Soldner is here to get us started. Hard to say FY27, but that's where we are, and looking at all the information we have thus far that will begin and continue our planning for a really exciting next year to go along with everything we present tonight. Turn over to Bob.
Thank you, Dr. Gothard. Jesse, we'll go to the next slide. It is hard to say 26, 27 budget, but we are here and we need to say it. I think the first thing, take a look at the timeline here. We are very early in the process, but I have worked staff and have come up with some very preliminary revenue projections, some very preliminary kind of what I view as the last few budget cycles, what I would call our standard costs, right? That, want to be looking at our costs, want to be using our money wisely, efficiently, effectively, but there are some costs that I expect to see no matter what. And I think it's consistent where the board will want to be. But so right now we want to talk a little bit about those considerations, some of the assumptions that were behind those initial numbers, and then tell you as the year goes on, we're going to continue to meet, and I'll be updating those revenues as more information becomes available, or better sense some of the data to make or revise the projections. Saying all that, I do believe the projections are pretty good to where we're ultimately going to be 6 months, 7 months now. But there's always surprises, so we'll deal with when they come. One of the things that are still in play, the next slide, Jesse, is our MMSD Excellence Together. Obviously, our new strategic framework. We're going to be finalizing the KPIs and the implementation of that officially. Obviously, we're taking a look at our budget now to be to ensure we're consistent with that, but there will be clearly some considerations we have as we take a look at that final strategic framework and what we need to have in place, and we'll make some of those decisions. But as always, that will be guiding us. On that, from my perspective, our MSD Excellence Together continues to focus on equity and student equity and closing opportunity gaps, much of what the board has been budgeting the last several years. So it's really kind of continuing in my mind on the budget side of things, continuing what we're doing, and then spending time focusing on things that are making a difference, like Jen and Jorge talking about the Grow Your Own programs, right? So we'll continue to focus on that. All right, next slide, Jesse. This is just a recap in terms of the 24-25 actuals. You'll be getting a memo soon from my staff that our audit firm wants to present at the January Board of Education meeting on the final findings for 24-25 audit. It's going to be an unmodified opinion, meaning no changes of any substance. We didn't have to do any modifications at all. So the information that the staff, which takes a lot of time and effort and caring to do things right, clean audit is what it is. But it confirms our starting position of 100 million, 100.7 million on our fund balance. And then again, we've talked about this budget is balanced budget. It's an approved budget, ongoing revenues meeting ongoing expenditures, which I think is a good point to talk about as we get into 26, 27. I obviously have been the primary person responding to questions about property taxes and the impacts of 2 referendum questions that really came online this fall. I think it'll just be important as we did this year to really continue to talk about ways the pros and cons if we decide not to have a balanced budget. That is, if we have expenditures higher than what we project our new ongoing revenues. I think
I think we want to get more into the conversations about how that could be perceived in the public, and good stewards of our money in terms of having that increased fund balance policy from 12 to 18%. But and then finally on that, we'll go to the next slide, Jesse. We are a 90% supported property tax school district, right? And we spent a lot of time, which we're going to continue to spend, talking about the retrenchment and state funding provided by the legislature over the last 15 years, right? So if we could get some movement towards the state returning to cost sharing in all public school systems, including Madison, that is a direct dollar for dollar reduction in our property taxes, right? So I do firmly believe in the next session or two of the legislature, there will be more positive movement on that front, right? That more state dollars will be shared with districts such as ours that are primarily supported with the property tax, in the context of revenue limits, and in the context of the other state per pupil categorical aid programs. So there's no change in terms of state law regarding revenue limits. It is our operating authority. It is primarily based on that 3-year rolling membership. In terms of the next slide, Jesse, in terms of this year, it's the 2025 third Friday and the prior 2 third Fridays. And so those were our numbers for 2025. Remember the next slide, Jesse, the revenue limit, as I said, is a 3-year rolling average. So although we have a slight decline in our enrollment this year in terms of full-time equivalency membership calculations, because of that 3-year average, it's in essence, we're flat in terms of our enrollment projection. And so as we continue to stay in that area and hopefully increase in the fall of 2026, it'll change our revenue picture. Next slide, Jesse. So you can see here's that 3-year rolling average just using 25, 26. It's in essence flat the last 3 years. And so part of my, the first assumption I'm sharing in terms of our revenue projections, I'm assuming our revenue will remain flat, that we will have the same third Friday, September count in 2026 as we will in 2025. Now, is that what it's going to be? Nobody knows, right? It's going to be the same. It's going to be more. It's going to be less. It's going to be one of those 3 things. But I think in terms of how the revenue limit works, I think saying we're going to have the same revenue makes a lot of sense at this point in the stage, really because there's a declining enrollment purpose in the revenue limit, where if our enrollment would decline in the fall, the revenue limit has a calculation where we make up that base revenue and it maintains it. And then if it happens to go up, well, our 3-year rolling average will be a little bit better and we'll have more revenue to take a look at. But I think it's a legitimate assumption to make at this point in time. Next slide, Jesse. So this is including the 26-27 revenue projection. This is the slide that I've been sharing with you and my predecessor created in terms of taking a look at our revenue limit percent change compared to consumer price index CPI used for our wage adjustments, right? This is the second assumption I'm making. I'm assuming our CPI is going to be about what it is this year. This year it was 2.95%. It should be about 3%, might be down to 2.8%. But I think saying we're going to maintain CPI 2.95% is a legitimate estimate to make. The numbers behind this slide in terms of where we are with total revenues, it's about a 6.6% revenue projection on controlled revenues that I'm projecting at this time compared to about a 3% CPI. That translated into about $30 million of revenues for 26-27 compared to our base this year. Next slide, Jesse. This is the last 4 years of the revenue projection, 26-27 revenue limit with the 26-27 projection. The blue is our base revenue, which carries forward from the prior year. The gray box, which is kind of shaded, whatever that color is in the 26-27. But the last 2 years, it was 30 million. new revenues approved by the voters. So 24, 25, and this year 25, 26. That gray box is $30 million. The non-recurring exemption, that little, I don't know what you call that, gold or yellow or something not gray color, is about 10 million with the non-recurring exemption. Primarily, that is a reflection of our biggest non-recurring exemption is the 13, a little under 13 million, probably closer to 8 million for the private voucher programs, where we raise our property taxes every year to be able to sustain our budget in terms of what we spend. So if we don't raise the taxes, we'll have a hole in our budget that our aid is reduced at the end of every year. So that's what that non-recurring exemption really is. In 26, 27, the voters approved 20 million. So, which is really this year, we had about 40, a little over 40 million in new revenues, primarily because about 10 million for non-recurring and 30 million approved by the voters. So no surprise when you get into the details of the numbers, it's about 30 million in new revenues. Why? Because the voters approved 20 and the non-recurring exemption is going to be around 10 million, right? Because of the way the factors in the formula work. So 30 million new revenues. That's good. That's good. Because we have 30 million in base building revenues. Now, next slide, Jesse. Part of that $30 million under revenue limit is either it's funded by a property tax increase or state provides more general aid. You can use that general aid to buy down that revenue limit increase in terms of, in our case, a property tax impact. This slide tells you I'm projecting a decline in our state aid. We peaked in 24, 25. We went down to just under 50 million. At this point in time, again, I don't know what all the other factors are in terms of state property value growth. I'm assuming about a 5% realized value growth for Madison, which I think is conservative. I think we'll be above that. But with that assumption and primarily the 85% hold harmless, I'm projecting we'll have about just over 42 million in state aids, which is a decline of about 7 million, right? So if state aid is going down, we need to replace that aid from this year with a property tax increase already in the fall, right? So we know right now that all other things being equal, I always like to say it's an old school finance kind of way to analyze and look at this. All other things being equal, I believe our state aid is going to go down by about $7 million, which means property taxes are going to have to increase by $7 million, or we're going to have to reduce our expenditures by $7 million, or use fund balance, right? Use one-time funds to pay for ongoing costs, right? So this is kind of just setting the framework, the context of 26, 27 budget. Now, on that next slide, Jesse, this is a slide where I say kind of the last several years, right? We do step increases, which is in the handbook. We give the CPI raise in terms of wages, and we've had double-digit health insurance increases. I expect all to continue in 26, 27 in terms of step, in terms of a CPI wage, right? Because you have to make some assumption right now. And I believe our health insurance likely going to go up even higher than it went up the last 2 years, right? It's just a projection right now. Again, very preliminary. We won't really know those numbers for 3-4 months. But for purposes of budgeting, I would say 30 million in new base building revenues and at least bare minimum 30 million on ongoing kind of cost growth, right? Now, there's going to be some changes as we go on, as I said, but overall, that's kind of where I believe we are. And now finally, my final assumption for these projections. I am assuming the federal government is going to give us the same level of federal revenues in 26, 27 as they are this year, right? Now that's kind of a debatable point, one could say, but I'm assuming it's going to be flat level, and based on the most recent information we're hearing, although there's nothing final yet, I'd say it's better chances that we'll be about level funded, maybe a tiny bit less than we are about totally losing the federal allocation. But but I have no way of knowing that for certain, right? These are just preliminary projections. I have to make some assumptions, and that's one of the big assumptions I've made in terms of putting this all together. Because, and then I will add, most of our federal dollars, the 30+ million, is primarily tied up in staff, right? We pay for staff with our federal dollars, right? So if that doesn't come through, that's $30 million that we'd have to look at finding revenues for or reducing expenditure, right? So that's it. High overview, kind of ripping kind of through it pretty fast. Questions?
Definitely appreciate it, Bob. Okay, starting with questions. Board Member Muldrow, then Board Member Vandermeulen.
Bob, thank you so much for your presentation. I am curious about, I guess I want to say, when we passed the referendums, and I'm tremendously grateful to our community for supporting the facilities and the operations referendum. But when we passed those referendums, we had just completed a biannual budget from the state that had a 0% increase for 2 years. And we also were hitting a funding cliff for about $43 million as it relates to ESSER with the federal government. What I don't think we factored in as a board was the per pupil increase that was added by Governor Tony Evers, and the idea that that would also be funded by the local taxpayer. Can you talk to me a little bit about how we should explain the configuration of our current budget to the local taxpayer in terms of per pupil revenue?
Sure. So Board Member Muldrow is referring to the $325 per member on revenue limits that when we were talking pre-referendum, we didn't know about, right? It was zero. It ended up being 325 one time for that biennium, but because of a creative veto by Governor Evers that and now upheld by the Supreme Court, that 325 is there for another 398 years until the law change referendum or they get some other movement on it. And you're absolutely right, Board Member Muldrow, that allows us to increase our base revenue, but under the current scenario of us being 90% funded by the property tax because of the state not providing the same level of state aid in terms of cost sharing for the Madison School District, that is primarily carried by the property taxpayer. And that's just the way school finance works. And right, we get the revenue limit that controls the amount of revenue we can get every year from property taxes and state aid. And if the state legislature is not increasing state aid, and in our case, as I shared with you, our state aid is being reduced, that results in a property tax increase, or we have to cut our expenditures, or we have to use one-time fund balance to maintain those ongoing expenditures. That's just the way the law works.
Thank you very much for speaking to that. I think part of the point I want to get at is that had we known that we would have an additional $325 per pupil every year for the next 390 years, would we have reconsidered the amounts we were asking for as it relates to our referendum in terms of operatings?
Obviously it's hard to go back and look at that. It's possible, right? I didn't take that into consideration in terms of revenue within the revenue limit base. But as you can see from the last side in terms of our potential budget increases, when we came up to 100 million, I wasn't also thinking we'd have multiple years of double-digit health insurance increase, right? I wasn't budgeting that we were going to be spending close to $15 million base building expenditures every year since we talked about the 4-year operating dollars, right? So clearly things can change when you make assumptions, but I would say the 325 has been used up to pay for our health insurance increase. It really has.
Board Member Muldrow, I'd also add that another way we could look at it is that 325 puts a little bit of dent in our special education cross subsidy as well. You know, we also know that we're dramatically underfunded from the state and federal government for IDEA reimbursement. So that too is one factor that we use into our whole perspective.
I greatly appreciate that explanation. Bob, I'm right there with you. I also did not expect that we would see these kinds of increases in relationship to healthcare. However, there was some concern at the time that we went to referendum that healthcare and the market in general was going to be far less stable. We had just seen the highest cost of living increase in the history of the organization. And so I do think the referendum was meant to be highly effective in terms of covering operating expenses. And I also think we need to alleviate some pressure that we're creating for the local taxpayer. And I think we have to think really creatively around how to do that. In terms of, you know, what our long-term strategy is going to be, and as it relates to taxing folks. I guess my question, you know, if I was going to kind of like wrap things up, would be moving forward, how do we kind of create the stability necessary to have a long-term relationship with local taxpayers as they fund public education generously and effectively, that allows for us to be really transparent about what folks are going to see on their property tax bill.
All right.
You're completely, is the way to answer that, I guess. It's gonna be, that's clearly gonna be a goal of ours, but the details matter, right? So some things that are gonna impact us over the next couple of years really is what's gonna happen with our student enrollment. That's the biggest driver in revenue limits. Is it gonna continue to increase or stay stable? I think the second piece is really, I think the legislature is taking a lot of legitimate, I'll call it criticism, for their lack of state support of the local public schools. The increases that are happening, as you can see, it's not like we're adding all kinds of new and excess programming and positions, right? These are bare minimum kind of cost to continue issues from my perspective, right? Legitimate wage increases in terms of inflation and providing health insurance, right? We don't control the health insurance market, but our employees need good health insurance, right? So those are things we can't control. But I really do hope and believe we will get more support from the state in the next biennial budget. That's not going to do anything for 26, 27, right? That's 27, 28 and beyond.
I greatly appreciate that. And I think this is, you know, a really delicate balancing act in terms of what folks can afford and the importance of the work that we do and the integrity of the services we deliver. And as a person who owns a home in this community and sends my children to our schools and has a partner working in our schools, I think I, like most of the people on this board, have a lot of skin in the game and have to think about this from a variety of perspectives. I think we want to take good care of our educators and our young people, and we also want to take care of our entire community and be really mindful of what, you know, how people are being impacted by affordability across our community in a variety of ways. Thank you so much for answering my questions, Joe. That's it for me, Chair Castro.
All right, Board Member Vandermeulen, then Board Member Saravo.
This is going to be a bit of a different budget questioning for me. I'm going to just ask a series of quick questions, which is, last year, we spent 10 million on charter and voucher programs that were not funded by the school, correct?
This year it's about 13 million.
13 million, excuse me. Thank you, I appreciate that. So that's 13 million out of the property tax budget that the board had nothing to do with, that our district had nothing to do with. Second question. We have tried, no, I'm going to scratch that. Second question. We provide a large amount for our staff, and I appreciate that. So my question is, actually, I'm just going to change it to comments, if I may. I apologize for wasting time. And my comments are as follows. One, COLA is a necessity. Two, our equity project this year should be retention and recruitment. Retention can only be done when we fix salary compression, because I'm sorry, if a person doesn't think that their wages are going to be secure, they're not going to. Three, we can avoid other costs. We have to be creative, yes. One, we don't duplicate efforts. We already have at least one compensation study, 768 pages. It's a fun read. That was in 2022. And I don't think we need another one. I think there's a very simple way that we can fix salary compression that it cannot be discussed at this meeting at this time. But we need to realize that our individual teachers need to be able to afford to live in the community that they teach in. And that can be done through a series of asking how on each one to use the equity tool. Who does this affect most? What people does it affect? And then add one additional one. How does this affect our average cost for our average employee? I think by asking that question, we're going to see quite a bit on spending and what it costs. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Board Member Saravo, followed by Board Chair Nichols.
Thank you, Chair Castro. Skip Bob, you kind of surprised me when you said you were confident in our legislators to make some of those adjustments that we're going to have a positive outcome. I haven't heard that said in a very long time. Could you explain exactly why?
I think there's going to be change in the state legislature come fall of 2026, right?
Mhm.
So I don't think it's going to change with the current
Mhm.
majorities in the legislature, but I think if there's change,
Mhm.
there will be change in law in terms of state support for public schools. I'm optimistic. I'm always optimistic. Next budget will be a better budget.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. We need some in that space. Probably because where my questions are going is probably not going to keep us there for very long. But I'm always, you know me, I'm always very focused on our special education reimbursement rate and how that tends to fluctuate and change with time. Could you explain what the adjustments that have recently been put out, what that is going to do, how that impacts us?
Sure. That's one of those areas that I'm not even going to begin to try to guess at for 26, 27, not until we get, a good four plus months into it in terms of where I think costs are going to be going, right? So this year, the legislature, subsequent appropriation said it was 42%. DPI came out with some estimates, said it was 35%. Most of us don't believe it's going to be as low as 35%. It's not going to be anywhere near 42%. What does it end up being? Maybe 37, maybe 38%. Not sure at this time. But that has a direct impact on us, right? If the state doesn't meet the percentage they say they're going to meet, then that means we have to take more money out of our general fund, right? Because we have to cover the difference in terms of what it costs to implement an IEP and how much state aid and federal dollars we cover those costs, right? And so if the state ends up shorting us by 3 to 5 million, that's another 3 to 5 million we have to put towards our increasing revenues out of the whole picture for us, right? So it creates a bigger hole for us.
Mhm.
The flip is if they hit what they're saying they're gonna, it allows us more flexibility in terms of that same $3 to $5 million, right? We have some more flexibility under our budget to take a look at how could we use that 3 to 5 million, because it's going to be base revenue available for other moving forward. So it's really important. State support is really important, not only on categorical, but on general school aids.
And I highly believe that it blows my mind how it's okay to take funds, how when they make that number change all the time about not reimbursing special ed, it comes out of somewhere, it comes out of the gen ed. That affects everybody. So it's both sides of the scale. It's never just one. It comes from somewhere, and we're always cognizant of that, and we're always planning for it. And taxpayers definitely. I'm glad that you put at the very beginning of there. 90% supported property tax district is shocking, but it means that we're very connected to the community and rely highly upon them. And really glad that they've been behind all of the work that's being done every single day in our communities. Um, I really wish I knew like a really good way to kind of wrap that up. I'm just so cognizant of how that works. Is there a way that you'd be able to provide the board with like exactly how much comes out of our Gen Ed fund to cover what they do not reimburse us for special education? I've been more highly focused on our federal and state dollars that we get, and I'd like to be just very cognizant of that going forward.
Yeah, the 25-26 budget that the board approved is just under $62 million that we're taking from our general fund to cover those IEP costs that are really important for us to provide that are not covered by the state, or there's not enough federal IDEA. 2 million, you said? $62 million. Right.
And it was when I started looking at this in 2019, like the whole state of Wisconsin was pulling $1 billion in order to cover the costs. I think it's at 1.6 or something like that right now across the state. But I think it's just good for us to be cognizant of where we are at. So thank you very much. And that's all, Chair. Thank you.
All right, Board Chair Nichols.
Thank you, Chair Castro. Thank you, Bob, for this preliminary budget outlook. I just want to make sure that I'm tracking this correctly. So on slide 60, where you talk about the potential budget increases, you show $29,500,000 of right now at this very early stage of the budget, which is basically investments in staff, steps, a 2.95 cost of living, and health insurance. And out of the 20 million of the new revenue that we are getting from our taxpayers, based on this slide, we would already be exceeding the new revenue.
Yeah, I think overall, in addition to the 20 million approved by the voters, right? Because of that $325 per member, we're going to have an additional, and this is just really raw, right? Still,
Okay.
So no 10 million. So I believe right now we have about 30 million in new base building revenues, and we have slide 60 says about 30 million in new costs that we're going to have.
Okay, so the other 10 that you were talking about was based on the $325 per pupil. Okay, so there's another 10 million.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. So we have 30 million in new revenue, and we're still looking at 29.5 in projected increases just to operate
yes,
our district, just to retain our staff, just to offer things that we consider the basics, health insurance, a small adjustment, and not anything really new or big, right? And so I guess what I'm wondering, and it may be too early to say, but I also heard earlier, and we had a strategic framework presentation last week. You also mentioned earlier in your presentation that as we start to bring that strategic framework together with the resources and infrastructure that's needed to really implement that well, there will have to be a collaboration that talks to the budget. We've had months of public comment about compression issues. And every year, there's usually been some set of kind of equity focused investments, expansion of 4K, or you know what I mean? Like, so this is not to ring the alarm, but it feels to me, and so, although we're very, very early in the budgeting process, there are going to be some tough conversations ahead. Because I for one, don't think that we can go back into structural deficit budgeting. I mean, there may be some one-time investments that we decide we need to make. But I also think our taxpayers, our community is watching how we are spending this operating referendum. And so do you have some thoughts about how the prioritization, how that process will take place over the coming months? And if you don't know right now, because you're still working through a lot of things, fair enough. But to me, this looks like we've got a lot to consider to have a balanced budget by the time we get to June.
Yeah, President Nichols, thank you. I think it's a number of things. You're right. You can kind of see how things are canceling out right now just to stay even. It's one of the reasons that you all know that once we start giving out allocation, there's always that push and pull. This is one of the reasons that we have to adjust our resources in some cases, because if the needs shift in one place and they're diminished in another, decline in another, the right thing to do is to move those resources. And you know what kind of feedback sometimes that generates from the community, but this is the reason why we don't have a lot of net new in. It really is a fixed system, at least based on these projections. The other thing we're going to have to do is look at everything. There may be some things that we discontinue. There may be other shared costs or shared expenditures that we no longer need or that we're going to move away from. We have to be very mindful of starting anything new. Anything that we establish as a recurring expense, something I'm extremely mindful of so that we don't put ourselves in that position, that we're not able to continue that work. So you're right. As we get further into our budget and planning for next year, Bob knows that, we'll have a finer and finer grain size that we can start to have some of these conversations internally with the board and with the community as well. And part of, if I may, part of MMSD Excellence Together as well, you remember that operational focus area that we have, it is to determine a system so that we can evaluate how we're doing, that we can evaluate and point to areas that we need to discontinue or areas we need to invest more in. So that is part of it as well. That won't get done in a year. That's not going to be the tool that we lean on in 6 months, but it's certainly in development.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you for presenting us with these initial numbers, Bob. As I'm sure many of us have already known, that the budget making process is a recursive process, so we will be building this document over the next 6, 7, 8 months, up to the final vote in October. I think as we are looking at how tight the margins are and we consider what programs we should continue or discontinue, I think it just underscores the need to really beef up our program evaluation and see if the programs are meeting their intended goals. So that's my comment. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second, Maya.
Okay, Board Member Lee, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? We are adjourned.
Thanks, Avian. Good night.